Darren Fox would see that multiplied by maybe a 1.4. And you can check it out at superdraft.io. Check all of the multipliers out, or on the app, just search Superdraft. So that's what makes it different. $10,000 up top. If you haven't signed up yet, this is what you do. Pay attention. Use the promo code AWESEMO10, AWESEMO10, AWESEMO10. You get a free $10 bonus. But wait, deposit less than $100, get a $20 bonus. Or if you deposit $100 or more, you get a $30 bonus right on top of your initial deposit. We're also going to be giving away 50 free $12 tickets today to those who are quickest to answer the trivia questions that we throw in the YouTube chat. That won't be me. That'll be our social media guys. They'll handle that. But we're giving away 50 $12 tickets today on the show. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And head over there to superdraft.io or download it in the App Store. Remember, AWESEMO10, or deposit $100 or more, get $30, less than $100, $20 bonus. You can't beat it. All right, man. Same question I ask you each and every time. We're back in action. What's your initial take on this slate? You've got 6 games, not a whole lot that are expected to be like wildly high scoring, and a few games that could potentially get out of hand by the halftime. But an interesting slate nonetheless, especially with the Chicago Bulls being completely devoid of bodies.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty wide open slate from a roster construction standpoint, because on one hand, you have a decent amount of value, mainly because of Chicago, as you mentioned, but there's some other cheap guys too, if you want to look to Detroit or something like that. So you could certainly go stars and scrubs and be fine using that value, going to guys like Giannis and Harden up at the top. But the mid-range has a lot of really strong options as well that I think are a little bit underpriced for the most part. So you could certainly make an argument for getting to a more balanced lineup and, foregoing the guys at the top and maybe just going to like one of the cheap Chicago value guys instead of multiple of them, and giving yourself a lot of upside that way. So I think that the pricing today is pretty soft, but it's soft in a way where it actually kind of, I think, opens the slate up. It's actually not in a bad way like we've seen a lot of the season.
Okay, it looks like we had some type of issue with YouTube, by the way. You didn't miss much. If you did, in fact, miss the super draft read, just use the promo code AWESEMO10 or deposit $100 or more, get $30. Deposit less than $100, get $20 right when you sign up. They're running their biggest contest tonight, $40,000, $10K up top. Okay, so we're on a different link. We'll keep it moving, Adam. Let's kick it off with Detroit and Milwaukee. You've got the Detroit Pistons here, 13-point home dogs against the Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo back in action. Hey, did you watch the All-Star game?
I did not watch any of the All-Star game.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's the impression I was getting from Twitter.
I'm not exaggerating. Like, people just like to pretend that things were good when they weren't, which is dumb. It was like, you would have thoroughly enjoyed this. And if they should really next year have like fourth quarter DFS contests, like fourth quarter or second half DFS contests. These guys were playing like they were in the finals. That's no exaggeration.
Well, I kept seeing, so what did Kyle Lowry try and take or actually take 2 different charges in the All-Star game?
Dude, he took a charge. He got thrown from the 3-point line down to the free throw line. And it's funny. I'm watching it. I'm like, now I see why this guy's an all-star. Kind of. Chris Paul had a monster game. Joel Embiid hit LeBron with the dream shake. I mean, it was really fun. And hopefully they keep that format. I know Woj was sitting down with like NBA brass to discuss whether or not they were going to do it going forward. But yeah,
I saw Chris Paul talking about it, and I guess it was like partially his idea or something. And
oh, really?
Yeah, he was saying that, or at least I think that's what he said, was that like it was partially his idea. So he was really interested in, during the game, he was trying to get feedback from players, and they seemed that they were actually enjoying it.
Yeah, it was really exciting, man. You know what though? Giannis scored 0 points in the fourth quarter. And there's those haters that say like he's not the type of guy that in real clutch situations has been able to persevere. Well, they were up by like 15 points and ended up losing. So I don't know.
It definitely didn't have anything to do with the supporting cast around him.
Well, I mean, I would hope that come on, dude.
His team sucked.
Why didn't he score?
No. I was talking about them losing the game, not him not scoring.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, you're up 15 going, relatively compared to the other team, sure. But if you consider who was on the court for most of the fourth quarter, like Doncic didn't play at all. Ben Simmons had a huge game, but what I'm saying is they ran a bunch of bench guys for a lot of the fourth quarter. Whatever. It's besides the point. Next year, if they do it, just promise me you'll watch it. You'll like it.
Yeah, no, I was disappointed that I missed it.
And I was betting on it like throughout the game. I'm not saying that's a wise decision to make, but it was a lot more than just your regular All-Star game. So Detroit, Milwaukee, Giannis back in action, regular season form. They're 13-point favorites here, and it's tough to say how much run you're going to get. We always say this, both of us on the show. We're not in the business of projecting blowouts, but this is a bad Detroit team, Adam. And now Reggie Jackson is on his way to the Clippers. So what are we working with here? You've got no Andre Drummond. He's in Cleveland. Christian Wood has played good basketball, but he's certainly a better fantasy player than a real life player in terms of actual impact. Luke Kennard, who has shown flashes this year, is out still. So you've got what? You have Derrick Rose and Christian Wood as your 1 and 2.
Yeah, this game is really, or the Detroit side, I should say, is really, I think, interesting, but also difficult to confidently project because we haven't seen how the rotations are really going to look. We just kind of have coach speak coming from Dwayne Casey. He said that Bruce Brown is not going to be a primary ball handler. He's going to be a secondary ball handler going forward. He said that Svi can run some point behind Derrick Rose. They have Jordan Bowen up from the G League, but Casey said that Bowen would have to earn his playing time. So I don't know if he's even in the rotation to start or, how many minutes he gets. But it's not going to be a good team. They're clearly not looking to be competitive with no Griffin, no Drummond, and no Jackson now. So on one hand, you have someone like Derrick Rose, who in his time without Andre Drummond or Blake Griffin on the floor this season has a 33.5% usage rate and an assist percentage above 50%. And he's reasonably priced. On the other hand, I have no idea how many minutes this guy plays because
just going to say that they're clearly unloading any talent they had.
Right. On one hand, prior to his injury, he was very consistently playing 30 plus minutes. On the other hand, they could just prioritize getting Svi minutes and Jordan Bowen minutes, or if the game even slightly starts to get out of hand, does Rose go to the bench? There's a lot of risk, I think, in the minutes. But the thing that I like about Rose is that even if I only project 26 minutes, which I think is reasonable because I think clearly he could play more and he could play less, but he still looks like a pretty good option. And then if you look at the ownership percentage, we only have him at about 12% on DraftKings right now. It's the kind of guy where if a lot of the field was going to him, I would look to find other options since he is risky. But on a 6-game slate, if a high percentage of the field isn't going to roster a sub 6K guy with a 33.5% usage rate and a 50% assist percentage, then I'm definitely interested.
Yeah. Not to mention against the Bucks team that over the last month is averaging 108, almost 108 possessions per 48. They're playing at a lightning fast pace. Now, look, you have to couple that with the fact that they also have the best defense in the league, but the opportunities are going to be there. Like Derrick Rose, for however long he's on the court, is going to get a lot of shots up. He's going to have a lot of opportunity to rack up some peripherals as well. If he was 6,800, I'd really have no interest in him today. But as you pointed out, 5,900 is quite appealing. What type of run is he going to get? I don't know. Coming off of an injury he played 17 minutes last game, right, Adam?
Yeah, he was basically just the direct backup to Reggie Jackson.
Yeah. So here's the thing. It was a horrible game in terms of his performance, but he still shot 13 times in 17 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I spent, a decent amount of time today trying to find rates for Derrick Rose under any conditions that I could possibly think are similar to today, where, maybe he didn't have a 50+% assist percentage or a 33% usage rate. And, you can take all of Jackson, Griffin, Drummond off. You can take just, Drummond and Griffin off. It really doesn't matter. Even if you take just Andre Drummond off the floor and don't account at all for Jackson or Griffin, Rose is still in those ballparks as far as rates go. So the opportunities are going to be there. It's just a matter of how many minutes is he on the floor.
And consider this too. He's got a 31% usage rate overall on the season. 41% assist rate. That's given that Drummond played almost every single game, you
Right.
know?
Yeah,
And not
it's
just
really
Drummond,
just
but
minutes.
what's that?
It's really just a minutes concern,
For
and then
sure.
to some extent, the fact that Milwaukee's a really good defense.
If I was going to get a neck tattoo, I would want something like Derrick Rose's neck tattoo. It's a nice neck tattoo, Adam.
I'm Googling it now because I can't picture it.
I don't want no Wilson Chandler where you had like deformed faces on your head, but I'm all about that Derrick Rose neck tattoo. Maybe I'll consider it once I retire. Anyway, anybody else for Detroit? Like, where are you at on Christian Wood?
Yeah, Christian Wood, it looks like I'm probably coming in around the field right now. We have him projected for right around 20% ownership on DraftKings. In the crunch I did before the show, I was a little bit below that. But I don't think that, like, I just don't really have a strong take one way or the other. He's a productive fantasy player. He should get minutes. He's the nice thing about him is that he's on the opposite end of the spectrum from Derrick Rose, where the Pistons have every incentive in the world to play Christian Wood kind of no matter how the game is going, because they're trying to evaluate the guy and see if he's a part of their future going forward. So it's unlikely that they're trying to find reasons to get him off the floor like they might do with Derrick Rose. So that's nice. The only thing that is not super appealing is that the price tag is relative to some other plays on the slate. I don't think he's overpriced. It's just kind of a more correct price than other guys. So Wood, I think, is fine. One guy that I think is appealing that right now we don't have projected for a lot of ownership is Svi at 3,200 on DraftKings. We have the highest owned player on the slate is 3K, and we'll get to Shaq Harrison. I think that's a good chalk play as well. But I think that Svi could play up to upper 20s in minutes, maybe get to 30. But you had Casey talk about him getting more ball handling responsibilities, which should lead to more assists. You're also talking about a Milwaukee team that, while they are really efficient defensively, they do give up a lot of 3-point attempts and play at the fast pace like you talked about. So I think that benefits him as well. It's not like he's a super attractive fantasy option, but if nobody's going to roster the $3,200 guy that potentially is going to start getting more productive minutes, then I think it's a pretty appealing tournament spot.
Bucks allow the most 3-point attempts and the most made 3-pointers, but don't confuse that with anything outside of the fact that they just play really fast. But that's enough. Look, efficiency is less important when you've got the volume. I hear you. Milwaukee's a little bit more complicated. Actually, no, I'd say the whole Rose situation is quite complicated, but what I mean by Milwaukee is once you get into price points, Chris Middleton is $8,300 on DraftKings, quite an expensive price point on him. $6,800 on FanDuel. Eric Bledsoe, meanwhile, coming in at $7,200 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $6,300, and then Giannis is justifiably pricey across the board. What are we doing with the top three guys from the Bucks today?
It's really difficult for me to get to Bledsoe or Middleton because they're priced up as a result of Giannis missing the last couple of games prior to the All-Star break. But I think that Giannis himself looks really good. Very, very clearly my top option from Milwaukee here. The concern you run into is always the same with Giannis, and it's his playing time. This is a bad Detroit team, like you said. Milwaukee's 13-point road favorites. And one thing that I mention a lot with Giannis, and so do you, it's not just that if the game blows out, he loses a few minutes, like you always kind of have to deal with superstars. But Budenholzer does such a good job of limiting Giannis's stints in the game if it's not competitive, where he, I think, tends to lose a little bit more time even than other guys do. So, on one hand, he's still, if Milwaukee blows out Detroit, there's still a really good chance Giannis has a big game, even in limited minutes. On the other hand, you're talking about needing him to average, north of 2 fantasy points per minute if he only plays like 25 or 26 minutes. So there's certainly the risk there, but at the same time, this is the best per minute fantasy producer in the league. He averages, regardless of who's on the floor, he averages north of 1.9 DraftKings points per minute. And if you get 30 or 31 minutes from him because the game does stay competitive, then it's really easy to see how he's the top scorer, or at least one of the top scorers on the slate. And his salary is affordable. The other thing that makes him stand out to me, because he projects really similarly to James Harden, but the thing that gives Giannis the edge for me is his position. He's forward eligible instead of guard eligible. And there's a ton of depth at the guard positions today, whereas I think the forward positions have a few good plays, but it's a lot the opportunity cost is a lot lower. So right now, with the way ownership projections look, I'm getting the tons, to be honest.
Okay. Any interest in guys like Middleton and Bledsoe? Like I said, Middleton sub 7K on FanDuel, 8,300 on DraftKings. Big difference there.
Yeah, FanDuel is fine. He's priced, pretty much where he should be for Giannis being active. But on DraftKings at 8,300, you're still seeing the result of his price tag going up when Giannis was out.
Do you have anybody else you like here from the Milwaukee Bucks?
I really don't. For the most part, the salaries went up and are very slowly coming back down. George Hill is 3K flat, but again, there's opportunity cost at the guard positions, and you're not really struggling for value down there. Like, you have Shaq Harrison, you have Svi, who I like a little bit more than George Hill. So I still don't think that he's that appealing.
We did have a question from Dave in our premium Slack chat. Do you have any interest in Langston Galloway?
Not really. Like, I think he gets around 30 minutes, but you're still talking about Langston Galloway. He projects similarly in terms of points to Svi for me, but they're both low owned, and Svi is even cheaper than Galloway is.
By the way, something probably worth mentioning. The Pistons defensive rating with and without Andre Drummond is pretty much the same. So it hasn't made a huge difference. Now, this doesn't matter anyway. Point is, though, they were like 111 with him on the court, which is not good. So it's not like I see this team being markedly better with him defensively. I just still think they're bad regardless. And this is one of those games that I truly do have some concerns about. Milwaukee has won, more games by double digits than any other team this year. And I don't even think it's close, honestly. So that's my only concern, but I hear you on Giannis. Outside of that, I don't see myself getting too much here on the Bucks. And we have a lot of other spots to talk about. One of them being Atlanta and Miami. You got the Atlanta Hawks here at home, where they've played better basketball. They're far from a juggernaut on their home court, but still a decent enough team. They're 6.5 point dogs here, 229.5 total at home against Miami. What do you make of Atlanta here? By the way, at home, I take that back. Thought they were better. No, they still suck shit. They're 9-17, 6-24 on the road though, but they've played closer games there at least. Here's a question I want to get to. I actually want to start with the front court. Dwayne Dedmon started before the break. The game before that, Damian Jones got into foul trouble real early and things got kind of weird. But do you see John Collins getting any center minutes going forward?
I'm not expecting him to.
Sorry, he's played 70 minutes with Dedmon, and it's not a lot. But in those 70 minutes, he has a 10% total rebound rate. That will increase. It will improve for sure. But it is worth trying to discern whether or not he's going to get center minutes, because before they brought Dedmon over and Len was hurt before he was gone, you had Collins getting like 25 plus minutes a night at the 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty hard to give him those minutes for as long as multiple centers are healthy. And right now you have Dedmon, Jones, and Bruno Fernando. You have Capella won't be back for a while, and Scal is still out. But you still have 3 centers for them to use now. So it's pretty tough for me to expect him to get minutes at the 5.
Yeah, me too. Are you giving Dedmon around 28 minutes?
Yeah, I am concerned about that at all. I expect around 28 to 30 minutes. He'll probably be my highest owned guy from Atlanta on DraftKings, but it's still not going to be much. In the crunch I did before the show, I got like 5%. There's opportunity cost at center today because you do have Embiid, you have Bam, but also it's just not a really appealing matchup against Miami. So I think that Dedmon's okay, but I don't think I'll be getting into too much.
What are you thinking about Trey Young? He has a scoring prop of 29.5 today. It's actually a bit higher than I expected it to be, but he's been fantastic. And, in competitive games, you're getting 37 minutes or more from him, which is something you have to consider each and every time. He's been racking up consistent double-doubles, monster assist totals, really encouraging stuff. I mean, he was already good, like real good at him, but just listen to this. Over the last 10 games, he has some assist totals, individual, of 16, 14, 13, 18, 11, 13, 12. That's some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and his numbers overall with John Collins this year are outstanding. He's averaged 1.55 DraftKings points per minute in 24 games that Collins has played this year. He has a 35.7% usage rate and a 48.6% assist percentage
Crazy.
in those 24 games. So the numbers are insane. The thing that makes it difficult for me with Young is that he's priced up to 10.5. So he's in the same price range as Russell Westbrook, but he's also not that much less than guys like Giannis or Harden. It would be different if you had that normal like $2,000 price gap here, but you don't. So that makes it tough. And then looking at the ownership, like, yeah, Trey Young is projected to be low owned. He's projected for about 9% ownership on DraftKings, but Giannis is only at 20%. Harden is at 18. Westbrook's at 20. So you're really only talking about like 2-to-1 odds on these guys that are in much better spots. And I expect Miami, they're not a fast team anyway. They haven't been a bad defensive team, but I expect them to be even better defensively now that they've added Crowder and Iguodala as well. Trey Young, a very high, actually the highest pick and roll or most pick and roll possessions per game this year. And not that I get too concerned about play type data or stuff like that, but I can't really help thinking about the game that Dame Lillard played against Miami not too long before the break, where he got off to a really good start against what's a weaker Miami starting unit. But then the second unit that had Iguodala and Crowder, they were doing a really, really good job of just not letting Lillard do much of anything offensively. I think that you could see the same type of thing here with Young because you just don't have really good secondary scorers on this Atlanta team. It's not going to be difficult for Miami to kind of key in on him and get the ball away.
Let me approach this from a different angle, then we can move on. So over his last 10, he's averaging, and by the way, I agree with you, particularly when you get into the play type data. So that can be overblown sometimes, but there's a pretty stark contrast between what he does really well and what Miami does really well defensively. He's averaging 19 potential assists over his last 10, which is an absurd number. Not only that, but you look at 3-point shooting from a DK standpoint. Trey Young has games where you're getting like 3-4 additional points just from 3-point shooting alone. That's worth considering for a guy that is averaging almost 10 3-pointers per game. So the question I'll ask you is, you say he's very close in those guys to Westbrook and Giannis and Harden. Yeah. How close should he be, though? Because earlier this year, you remember both of us said we don't really think he had the ceiling to compete from a salary standpoint with these players. He has been, for the most part. Where should he be compared to these guys priced tonight?
I think he should be close to Westbrook. Like they're similar per minute guys. It's obviously a better matchup for Westbrook, but in general, they should be close. What I think makes it really difficult to get to Young, and I'm not getting to a whole lot of Westbrook, and it's the reason is that you're talking about guys in Young and Westbrook that are around 1.5 to 1.6 DraftKings point per minute guys that are basically the same price as, a 1.85 or 1.9 point per minute guy in Giannis, or, a 1.65 point per minute guy or somewhere in that ballpark for Harden. Obviously you can make the minutes argument for Giannis, but it's just really, really difficult, I think, especially if there's not going to be a big ownership gap, to prioritize the inferior per minute players when the pricing is that close.
Yeah, this is a matchup that I just don't feel comfortable with either.
Yeah.
On the Miami side, they've got a nice pace up spot here. We say this every time it comes to anyone going into or playing Atlanta. 7th fastest pace on the season. They're right there in the same ballpark as the Grizzlies, Wolves, and Wizards, who we love targeting against. Meanwhile, you've got the Miami Heat playing at the 5th slowest pace in the league. They gain a lot of possessions here, but also factoring in the 114 defensive rating that the Hawks own, it's better than only the Wizards and the Cavs. So it really does make for a pristine matchup from top to bottom. Who do we look towards here? What price points are standing out to us for the Miami Heat?
I think Butler really stands out. He's only 7,900 on DraftKings. He should play somewhere around 33 minutes. You're talking about a guy with around a 26% usage rate, about a 28% assist percentage, and just, a good producer, a high floor guy, but also gives you a high ceiling in a pace up spot. So I think Butler looks really good. And then Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic are the next two guys up for me from Miami. I think that Bam can be a little bit tough just because Embiid looks like such a good option from Philly for only 1,200 more. But I really like the spot for Bam because not only does he play big minutes, but he's the type of player that can really maximize getting the extra possessions that he should get in this matchup. He's not
Ben
the
Simmons
highest.
was just ruled out, by the way, for anybody building lineups. Go ahead.
Bam's not the highest usage guy, but he gets enough in the way of scoring. But he's a high assist guy, a high rebound guy. Good chance of getting a double-double, potentially in his best games can flirt with triple doubles. And this is just a spot where, all those extra possessions, I think he can really make the most of it. So I think he looks really good. And then you still have Tyler Hero out for Miami. So I'm expecting around 30 minutes for Goran Dragic, who is still affordably priced. He's got about a 27% usage rate over the last month. And it's obviously a matchup that he should be able to score in pretty easily.
Okay. Anything else for Miami you want to touch on?
Not really. After those three, it drops off for me. I think that there's concerns about the minutes for Kendrick Nunn. I think that the addition of Crowder and Iguodala takes, it takes some minutes away from Jones. It potentially takes minutes away from Nunn, and Duncan Robinson probably doesn't play as 36 or 37 minutes like we were getting at times earlier this year. And all of their prices have started to come up a bit.
Let's talk about the Bulls and the Charlotte Hornets. So you're going to see a decent amount of popularity coming towards this Chicago team today, not because they're good, but because they're shorthanded. They're 4.5-point favorites, 210.5 total. It's the lowest on the slate. So here's the thing. I want to set the table for you so we can just lay this all out first. Chris Dunn's still out, but not only is he out, Denzel Valentine is still out. Chandler Hutchison is now out. Otto Porter Jr. is still out. You'd hope maybe some of these guys could have made it back after the All-Star break, specifically Wendell Carter Jr. There was thoughts that he could be with a sprained ankle. He is also out. So you have, Lauri Markkanen obviously is still out. Adam, you have a number of players that are sidelined here. If you're looking at who we have, you have Satoransky, Kobe White, Ryan Arcidiacono, Shaq Harrison, Adam Makoka, Zach LaVine, Thaddeus Young, Luke Cornett, Cristiano Felicio, and Daniel Gafford, of whom 4 of those guys, well, I won't include Thad. Cornett, Felicio, and Gafford really aren't playing. You got them at the 4 and the 5, preferably only the 5, but I suppose you could throw Cornett at the 4 in a pinch. Outside of that, though, the guys that are occupying the 1 through 3, maybe Thad gets some of those minutes, but you have LaVine, Makoka, Harrison, Arcidiacono, White, and Satoransky. That's not a lot unless they brought someone up from the G League.
Yeah, I think that the options are pretty limited as far as minutes. I expect a 9, maybe 10-man rotation if Makoka gets in, but I would expect that his minutes are pretty limited. I think that it starts with Shaq Harrison, who is projected to be the highest owned player on the slate. He's the minimum salary. And on one hand, overall, he's not an unproductive player. Since last season, he's averaged a little over 0.85 DraftKings points per minute, but he does take a big hit in his per minute production if you put Zach LaVine on the floor, which obviously is going to be the case for a large percentage of his minutes tonight. So that's concerning. But at the same time, it goes back to him being a minimum salary player. And, on DraftKings, even he's a point guard, small forward. So you can roster him at a ton of positions. It makes it really, really easy to get him in the lineups. He started since last year. He has started 5 games with Zach LaVine in. He's been awful in 2 of them. He's been okay in 1 of them, and then he's been really good for his salary in the other 2. 14, 5.8, 24.5, 45.3, and 18.8 DraftKings points. So, I think that the expectation kind of can be all over the place here. But the fact that Dunn and Hutchison and Porter are all out, like Harrison can play multiple positions as well. I have him in for 28 minutes, but I think that he could get even more than that. And it's just really, really difficult for me to get away from him at min salary because I just think that there are so many different ways that he does well here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go around the horn here because I don't want to spend any more time on Hutchison. On Harrison. I agree with everything you said. You're getting him at minimum salary. There's not really an extended conversation there. What about Kobe White though? His price is considerably higher. but he's also someone that this season at least has proven he can go out there and have some solid games. What's really been most impressive to me recently, though, isn't the fact that he's getting shots up. The guy always gets shots up. It's just very often he's not hitting those shots. And he's a 37% shooter on the year. No good. But he's got 5+ assists in 3 of his last 4 games. He's rebounded well, not something that I think is necessarily sustainable, but he has been more involved as a passer. And given that Zach LaVine or Arcidiacono and Satoransky, none of them are premier facilitators. Satoransky has been solid enough, at least bringing the ball up the court on most possessions. But do you think Kobe White can do enough outside of scoring today to be worth it?
Yeah, and I think that the minutes should be there for him too. I mean, you're talking about he for a lot of the season has just been the backup to Satoransky, but now you don't have Don or Hutchison out there. So I think that you get north of 30 minutes for White. He's done enough as a facilitator, like you said, where I think that his primary the primary appeal is that he's going to at least attempt shots. And if he happens to shoot better than normal, he gives you a high ceiling. But I think that he does enough in the way of peripherals to where he's still a pretty solid value.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Zach LaVine too, the ownership is coming in pretty low on him. I understand why, but it also is interesting to note that LaVine over the last month has been averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute, 32.5% usage, 22% assists, almost 10% rebounds. None of that is spectacular, but and obviously it's a pace down spot. But looking at this matchup against the bad Charlotte defense, the Bulls 4.5, 5-point favorites at home is significant for a team of their stature. Does LaVine have any appeal to you, knowing that if it's close, he probably gets 37 minutes and could quite easily get up 25 plus field goal attempts with how shorthanded they are tonight?
Right. He has appeal for those reasons. You expect him to play big minutes. You expect him to be the leading scorer on the team, and he's a productive fantasy player. The thing that I think makes it difficult to get him in the lineups, at least on DraftKings where I've made lineups today, is that the mid-range, like a little bit cheaper than him, has a lot of what I think are really, really high upside guys, whether it's Butler, who we already talked about, but you also have Darren Fox and John Morant from that Memphis game, 2 guards there. There's, value as well. And then even at a different position, but for $200 less, you have Joel Embiid, who I think is really, really appealing. So it's kind of tough to get him into lineups. And so for that reason, right now, I'm kind of just coming in right around the field on him, but I do think he has a really high ceiling.
Anybody else for the Bulls?
Yeah, I think Satoransky probably gets more minutes here. His minutes have been pretty volatile this year, but I think that the injuries have a trickle-down effect to him as well, where he probably gets like 32, 33 minutes. He's only a little bit more expensive than Kobe White, so I think that they're pretty comparable.
Okay. The other side of this game, the Charlotte Hornets, man. So over the last 30 days, they are dead last in offensive rating. I mean, they've been worse than the Knicks. They've been worse than the Warriors. It's been really tough to watch this team, even when, you bet on them or you have Charlotte Hornets players in your lineup. It's a grueling experience. Here they are going up against the Bulls. It should be a close enough game. Low scoring though, super slow. What are we doing with the Hornets today? And are we seeing these price points come down enough now on guys like Terry Rozier, where we're willing to say, you know what, screw it. I'm now, because we talk and you and I did a lot of fantasy football drafts together this year. And the one thing is, like, when you say you'll never draft, like I would never draft that guy, it's kind of dumb. It's like, I won't draft him at that price or at that spot, at that ADP. Is Rozier now in a spot where you say, all right, 5,700 against the Bulls? I don't love the guy, but it is worthwhile to consider it. And is there anyone else you feel that way for on the Hornets?
Yeah. The price tag on Rozier is just really interesting because basically if you just compare him to Devontae Graham from the same backcourt, ever since Devontae Graham's really hot start to the season, you've gotten really comparable production from them. Since the start of 2020, Rozier actually has a little bit higher usage rate than Graham does. Graham has the higher assist percentage, but you're getting similar playing time, you're getting similar production, and you have an almost $2,000 discount coming in on Terry Rozier. So it's still not a priority for me in terms of exposure because there are so many guards that I really, really like today. But I do think that Rozier is cheap enough where I'll get to him. I'll start getting to him again. And then the same goes for PJ Washington, who he scares me. I mean, he's not the most productive player. His minutes are pretty inconsistent, but he does at least have the upside for mid 30s in minutes, especially if he's playing well. I have him projected for 30. I think that he probably comes in normally in like the 28 to 32 minute range, but he's just really, really cheap at only 4,500. So him and Rozier, I think, are two guys I get to the most from Charlotte.
Okay, let's keep it moving here. 3 to go. Big one coming up right here with the Ben Simmons news. But I should let you know that anybody that's new to the stream, new to the channel, new to Awesemo, number one, glad to have you. Hopefully you'll hang out and make this a part of your routine each night and every morning and every afternoon. Not saying, quit your job, but, when you get the opportunity, come hang out. If you haven't checked out awesemo.com yet, the best way to do it is use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word, get you 50% off any package. The Awesemo Plus Platinum subscription, you get 50% off that for your first week, so you can check it out, take 50% off the top, and get the ownership projections that we reference every show, the player projections, the boom or bust tool. Adam, baseball's coming up. The top stack tool was something we really loved last season. Alex Baker, Awesemo, created all of these, developed all of these, uses all of these tools. Also, all of our premium articles like Adam's Deep Dive and so much more, including the lineup builder, the Data Central that has all of the data you need to make solid decisions making lineups, and the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. That's just a taste of what we got over there. And if you want to check it out, use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word, get yourself 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. And
top stack tool for hockey is pretty money too.
What's that?
I said the top stack tool for hockey is pretty nice too.
Yeah, I can imagine you're not disappointed with it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Jake's awesome with the hockey content. I know Nolan does some of that too. So we got a great crew, and Ben is your jack of all trades. Like, you want to talk about college basketball, he's got you. You want to talk about cricket? Probably not. But I mean, I even asked him the other day if he was going to get into darts, because you can bet on that now. He said that's next on the list. So I love it. Anyway, check it out and say what's up in the premium Slack chat when you do. Definitely an interesting bunch. Philadelphia, Brooklyn. Ben Simmons sidelined now, Adam. The Sixers opened at 8.5. They did come. Keep this in mind. If you're looking at the opening line and you're looking at where they're at now, they're at -7, right? But that line moved to 7.5 earlier today. So assuming that the assumption was Ben Simmons was already going to be out. Anyway, the things open up a little bit, but this is a spot where we're going to really have to try and narrow this down in terms of what Brett Brown's going to do. So, Adam, Alec Burks is a part of the 76ers. It took him 14 years to get here, so we've only seen him in action. We've only seen him in action once against the Clippers, where he played 14 minutes in a win. Furkan Korkmaz was awful in that game. He started. I said this on the stream, by the way. Korkmaz is going to be a horrible, and then someone else starts the second half. Pretty sure that happened. But he scored 0 points. So is this a spot where, Shake Milton ends up starting at the 1, or Raul Neto gets to start at the 1? Or does Brett Brown say, you know what, Alec Burks, we brought you in here for a reason. You get the nod.
I don't know, man. You're the Sixers fan. You tell me.
I honestly, in this case, because of how scarcely Burke's been used, he was inactive in the one game because he took a red eye. If we had any inclination of like what type of role he was going to play to begin with, I'd feel confident making a decision. But I don't, because I don't know how Brett Brown plans on using him when everyone's healthy.
Right. No, I was really, really, really hoping that Simmons would play today. Not because I had any interest whatsoever in Simmons. Yeah. I just didn't feel like having this conversation because there's just so many different things they can do. They can start Josh Richardson at point, and put Thibault in the starting lineup if they want to.
Richardson's a phenomenal play, by the way, at his price point, regardless of where he starts.
He was a good play if Simmons was in. He's a fantastic play, with Simmons out. But yeah, I mean, I think you could name any player on Philadelphia, and if you told me he was starting, I would say, okay, that's fine. Outside of like Mike Scott. But yeah, so I mean, I don't think that we have a really good idea or we have no idea what the starting lineup is going to look like. The one thing that I do feel at least somewhat comfortable with is you're talking about 38 plus minutes that just left the lineup. So
probably 40.
Right. Yeah. What did he play? 44 last game? I think he played like every minute of the first half.
He played 43 minutes in regulation. Just absurd.
Right. So even if he doesn't start, you have a $3,600 Alec Burks on a team that does need more ball handling now. Even if you got let's say 22 minutes or something from Alec Burks at 3,600, he's going to look like a decent value.
He did initiate the offense a decent amount off the bench, by the way, with Simmons on the court in that 14 minutes he played.
Which makes sense too, because Brown had talked about wanting Simmons to initiate the offense less. So, I think the most likely outcome is that Burks is like the primary beneficiary as far as the value guys go, because of the skill set he has, because of what they need without Simmons, and because if you think about this team going forward, if they could get Alec Burks to be productive off the bench, it would make a really, really big difference for them, with what he brings. So I think he should be getting the opportunities. I just don't feel super confident in what Brown's going to do, but I'm going to project it like Burks gets a nice bump here.
Yeah. So another kind of wrinkle that a wrench in the works is, does Al Horford move back into the starting lineup? So then you just run Richardson, Furkan Korkmaz, Harris, Horford, and Embiid.
Right. You certainly could. And that's the thing. Like the fact that Richardson can just be the point guard means that you can just put any wing or four that you want to into the starting lineup. The one thing that makes me think they probably don't go with Horford is that it is it's Taurean Prince at the four. So it's not like you have a bigger guy out there. And that kind of, I think, was one of the things they were trying to avoid by moving Horford to the bench. So I'm assuming that you get one of these wings in there. But
so I'll tell you what my projected starting lineup is. But I think, as you and I both just discussed, neither of us are supremely confident here. I think you get Shake Milton back into the starting lineup, and you get Richardson, Shake Milton, Korkmaz, Harris, Embiid, and then you give yourself Al Horford and Alec Burks off the bench.
And so if that's the starting lineup, are you assuming Shake Milton is kind of just like a placeholder and playing like 14 minutes?
I would assume, number one, that Richardson is easily your primary ball handler initiating the offense. We would both agree that's obvious. In the event that Milton gets the nod, I would say 15, 17 minutes. The problem here is, I know he hardly played. He played 1 minute last game, but Simmons is a 40-minute per game guy.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is really reasonable, because what it does, and we see it a lot, is it allows the units to kind of work the way that they're intended.
Exactly.
And I think we saw it. I don't have that game in front of me, but if I remember correctly, I think it was after the trade where maybe like Robinson came back or something like that. Milton still got the start, like he had been starting, but then he just kind of did that, 16, 17 minute thing where he plays a stint basically in each half, and it just kind of helps hold everything together. So I'm with you. I think that's perfectly viable. And if he does start, I'm not going to be like, if Shake Milton starts, I'm still going to be putting my money on Alec Burks being the value guy.
Oh, not even, no question at all. Yeah. So let's do this, because I want to get through all these games, and we spent a lot of time on this one. Justifiably, you need to. Like, this game is pivotal in how roster construction and the slate breaks down. We love Josh Richardson, right? I can speak for you there, right? We love Josh Richardson. Embiid becomes very appealing. I'll tell you what, I'm worried that this offense doesn't function as well, but I still think they get this win, and I don't really care because Embiid's just going to get fed anyway. And then Alec Burks as the value guy. Guys like Tobias Harris, Al Horford, that's fine. But for me, Richardson, Embiid, and then just giving me the very cheap value with Burks. Those are my three favorite options for the Sixers. Give me your favorite options for Philly, and then we'll talk Brooklyn.
Yeah, those are my three favorites as well. It's really tough also to do like the on-off numbers with Philly because they run such like staggered rotations where it's really tough to kind of isolate what you're looking for. But keeping that in mind, without Simmons on the floor this year, Embiid's at 1.6 DraftKings points per minute with a 37% usage rate in 403 minutes. Josh Richardson's at 0.84 DraftKings points per minute. Harris is at 1.03. I like Harris a little bit too, assuming that Horford doesn't start because you should get more rebounding opportunities for Harris playing the four. So I agree with you that Richardson and Embiid are the two priorities, 1 and 2. Then Burks, and then I would say Harris is the fourth guy for me here.
Okay. Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving going to be out an extended period of time. Things keep getting worse for him in Brooklyn. Karis LeVert in these 5 games since Kyrie Irving went down is averaging 12 potential assists per game. I mean, I was very surprised to see that number. I really was. I know that Dinwiddie can't be the only guy, but LeVert's never exactly been a precision passer or even someone that's been relied upon for that. He's played pretty well. This is a difficult spot, though. His price has come up a little bit. He's $6,700 on DraftKings, on FanDuel. He's settled in at 6,100. What are you doing with Brooklyn?
I didn't get to quite as much as I was expecting, earlier in the day. LeVert is the guy that stands out the most to me because, he's been really good, but the opportunities are there. You're talking about him getting 33 or 34 minutes with Kyrie out in the games that he's played without Kyrie since he came back from injury. 31.9% usage rate compared to 27.3 for Dinwiddie, 27.5% assist percentage compared to 36.3 for Dinwiddie. So, I mean, you're still seeing Dinwiddie as the primary facilitator, but LeVert's not far behind, and LeVert has the higher usage rate over those games. Their minutes are being staggered as well, so you're getting some time where LeVert is just doing absolutely everything. So I think that with him being a little bit cheaper than Dinwiddie, he's my preferred option. It also helps that he has that guard forward eligibility on DraftKings that's so valuable. So I think both guys are fine, but in the context of the entire slate, I think not like top plays for me. I think that it's easier to get to LeVert than to Dinwiddie. Simmons being out again, it's really, really difficult to get like good on-off numbers for Philadelphia because of their normal rotations. But just kind of thinking about the length and the defender he is, it shouldn't make Philadelphia better defensively. That's for sure.
Ben Simmons has been one of the best defensive players in the league this year. No question.
So for ball dominant guys in Dinwiddie and LeVert, it makes me feel a little bit better.
I'm glad you brought that up. It doesn't make me love them because as a unit, they're still a good defensive team, and at home they're 25-2. They've locked teams down. So I'm definitely not getting too excited about them, but it does make it a better spot. All right, 2 to go here, and then we'll turn it over to the boys at Live Before Lock. Also, the Super Draft projections are free today on the site. Super Draft projections totally free at awesemo.com. Same with NHL and NBA ownership projections. $40,000, $10K up top over at Super Draft. Be sure to use those promo codes AWESEMO10 when you sign up and get in on those free NBA projections over at awesemo.com. Entirely free, along with the ownership for NBA and NHL. All right, man, 2 more to go here. Sacramento and Memphis. This one moved a little bit here. The Kings were 1.5 point favorites at one point. They're 1.5 point dogs at home now. 230 total, second highest on the slate. What are we thinking about Sacramento here, given that, you have players like Darren Fox, who he's having a strong season. It's just someone that at his price point that he's been at quite frequently, I just haven't found myself getting there. Maybe it's a product of the slates. Can you see yourself getting there today against the fast-paced Memphis team? Because this feels like one of the best spots we've seen for Fox in a little while.
Yeah, he was one of my highest owned guys in my crunch before the show. I think I guess starting with the negative is that Memphis has actually been really good defensively of late. Going into the All-Star break over the previous month, they ranked, I believe, second in defensive rating to the Bucks. They've been really, really good protecting around the rim. They haven't been as good defending the three-point line, but again, it's one of those things where that's just not as important. Stuff like that isn't as important to me as possessions and opportunities and minutes. And assuming this game's competitive and you have a 1 point spread here with a 229 total, you should get somewhere around 34 minutes for Darren Fox. For the season, he's got a 29.4 usage rate. If you just look at the games since Bogdanovich joined the starting lineup in place of Hield, it's up over 31%, almost a 35% assist percentage. Everything looks really, really good for Fox. He should benefit, from a pace-up game as well. And so I think his price tag is just really, really cheap.
Anyone else for Sacramento stand out to you? Buddy Hield. By the way, I was on Buddy Hield at plus 600 in the 3-point contest. Boom. Maybe that energizes him a bit, Adam. It is funny because I had talked about this to you. We had discussed this before, but Buddy Hield behind James Harden was attempting the most 3-pointers in the league this season. He's attempting 10 per game. So obviously with him seeing a bit of a role change and potentially fewer minutes plays into it, but I don't think he will. I think he'll get back up to 34 or so minutes in close games. Does he have any appeal to you today?
Yeah, he does for a couple of reasons. For one, he's not taking a usage hit, by going to the bench. And more importantly, you're not seeing his minutes really cut down either, especially when he's playing well, which, as Alex points out a lot, you're not going to win a tournament anyway if he's not playing well, so who cares? But if he is playing well, the path is clearly there for him to get 32-plus minutes again. He's still affordable. He's got a 27.5% usage rate. Yeah, I think he looks like a good option. Like, he's not – I prefer Fox for 800 more, but Hield is my second option from Sacramento.
Anyone else for the Kings?
There's been a lot of talk about Jabari Parker. I think he's got a really, really, really wide range of outcomes. Right now, we have him projected for no ownership. So if you want to just roll the dice and hope that you get like 24 minutes from him in large field tournaments, then go for it. But I'm not really confident in that happening. The Sacramento front court is a mess in terms of trying to project minutes. It is his first game with the team. He's really cheap. Ben and I talked about it this morning. Basically, I have no confidence in his minutes, but he is at least the type of guy where if he plays more minutes than I'm expecting him to, he'll do the most with them.
I'm going to let you run with Memphis because I want to make sure we get everything in for Houston, which is a pretty important one today. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think Memphis, John Morant really stands out. He's only 7K, and because point guard is so deep, you're not getting a lot of ownership to him. We only have him projected for about 9% ownership on DraftKings right now at 7K. I think his price tag and his ownership are both down because basically because of recency bias. His last couple of games, he's played 32 and 35 minutes. But prior to that, you had a pretty long stretch of like 27-minute, 28-minute games. And I think that there's kind of a tendency with players like Morant to just chalk that up to like, them not playing him a bunch of minutes. But really, it was just a lot of non-competitive games back-to-back for Memphis. In competitive games, you're still getting those 32-plus minutes. He has started shooting a lot as well. We kind of saw his usage take a huge drop when he came back from injury in mid-December. But if you look back over the last month, he's back up to a 25+% usage rate. I think he's a really, really good target to be over the field on in tournaments. Beyond that, though, secondary options and guys like Valanciunas, Jackson, and Brooks, because the game is appealing and because they have low ownership, but none of them really stand out as priority options for me. One rule that I would point out is that Anthony Melton and Dillon Brooks are still cannibalizing each other's minutes pretty heavily.
All right. Hey, if you enjoy the show, you want to help support us, the easiest way to do it is hit that thumbs up button. We do appreciate it from all of you guys hanging out with us. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and that notification bell as well, so we can keep putting free content out here on YouTube before we get banned again. All right. Golden State, Houston, let's close it out, man. 9.5-point dogs at home. Whenever with Andrew Wiggins as your leading scorer, things are not going to go well for you. He's just not a guy that can get it done. You're looking now at, $4,000 Jordan Poole, Damian Lee, Marcus Chris has played quite well, but it's a tough spot. It is a pace up spot, 232.5 total. It's the highest on the slate. What are we thinking with the, well, you know what? Run through Golden State first, and then we'll take our time closing it out with the Rockets.
I'm slightly more interested in Golden State now than I was this morning because it appears that Zach Norvell and Jeremy Pargo both are no longer under contract, so they don't have as many bodies to run out there. And they are cheap in an appealing matchup. But Jordan Poole is getting a ton of ownership. I think he's an okay value. I don't think he should be one of the highest owned guys on the slate. Even without D'Angelo Russell on the floor this year, he's only averaged 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute. You obviously are still going to be getting a lot of his minutes alongside Wiggins now instead of Russell. So, I think he's a solid value, but I don't think he should be as highly owned as he is. I think that Eric Pascal is kind of appealing at 4,300, but again, with Simmons being out, you just got more value opening up for Philadelphia. So nothing that I'm prioritizing here from the Golden State side.
All right. Yeah, me neither. On Houston, it's an interesting team today. Another game that might get out of hand, but you just have to project it as if it's going to stay close and these guys get their minutes because Westbrook and Harden are already playing monster minutes anyway. But with our most recent update, and then you can close us out, which was just a couple seconds ago. Check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 players from this game are in the top 15 of ownership, of which Covington, Poole, Westbrook, Harden, Wiggins, Daniel House, and Marquise Chris all fall into that category. So Westbrook and James Harden both looking at 20+% ownership today. Robert Covington right now projected for the 4th most ownership on the slate. How are we approaching the Rockets against the very bad Warriors team that really is even worse offensively, which is really where my biggest worry comes from, that they can't keep it close?
Yeah, it's obviously a really appealing matchup for Houston.
Kyrie Irving's season-ending surgery.
All right, lots of going forward. Really appealing matchup, obviously, for Houston. I think for me, Covington and Harden are the 2 priorities because I think that they're both – Covington, I think, is very, very clearly underpriced. And then I think that Harden just should be more expensive than Westbrook than he is, as I talked about earlier. With the ownership coming in where Harden and Westbrook are basically projected to be the same ownership, I would just rather be getting more Harden and less Westbrook. So unless that changes, I think that I'll be getting to a lot of Harden, a lot of Covington. House is a fine value. If he's going to get a lot of ownership, I think that there are enough kind of guys in that price range where I can pivot to them. And, House probably plays 37, 38 minutes here. It's just a matter of it's still Daniel House as far as production goes. So Covington and Harden, the 2 priorities. Any Westbrook or House I get to, I'm perfectly fine with. PJ Tucker, I guess, is the only other guy that you would mention. And I think we all know how everyone feels on PJ Tucker.
Well, almost everyone. Anything else before we close this one out, man?
No.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Head over to SuperDraft. Use the promo code AWESOMO10. Get $30 with $100+ deposit or 20 with less than 100. 10K up top tonight. It's the biggest contest yet, along with the one from last Wednesday. Stick around. Live Before a Lock is going to take you up till 7 p.m. Till next time, tomorrow. Actually, no, Adam will be with Alex tomorrow, but the Deeper Dive will be here presented by SuperDraft. Good luck tonight, everyone.
guys. You should be signing up now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Awesemo.com live before lock show. Back after a little bit of an all-star break. We got to rest our muscles, much like all of the important players out there that we'll be talking about tonight. I'm Chris Spags, joined once again by a man buried in North Carolina snowfall right now, Mr. Sal Vetri, better known as @SalVetri DFS on Twitter. How are you doing, Sal?
What's going on? Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, I'm excited. NBA's back. It was a full week outside of the All-Star festivities. So yeah, excited to be back. Nice 6-game slate.
It is a nice little 6-game slate today, and it is another big slate for you guys out there. We're having another super draft special today where we did it last week. They're running another gigantic tournament with 10K up top to first place, their jump shot tournament. There's a pretty decent probability of there being at least a little bit of overlay, so probably some decreased rake on there. But more importantly, just 10K up top is their biggest prize pool, again, on superdraft.io. So go check them out right now. Use the promo code AWESEMO10. If you use that promo code when you sign up, you can get $10 free without even depositing. If you do deposit under $100, you get yourself $20 free. And if you deposit over $100, you're given $30 free in super cash, which is just as good as real money on there. So go check them out right now at superdraft.io or by downloading Superdraft from the App Store. We'll be doing our special half-hour Superdraft only show after the main slate locks on the other site. The Superdraft slate today locks 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So get in there right now, superdraft.io, or download Superdraft from the App Store and use that promo code AWESEMO10 to get your free $10 with literally doing nothing. You don't have to put money in, get $10 free, or again, $20 with a deposit of under $100 or $30 with a deposit of $100 or more with the promo code AWESEMO10. All right, Sal, let's talk about the slate here. Just 6 games, but already a lot of moving pieces with Ben Simmons out. And I guess let's talk about that one up top. I want to get your thoughts on Shaq Harrison as well, because he is one question that we're all going to have to answer today for ourselves. But Ben Simmons out, Sal, for the Sixers. How are you feeling about their prospects? Who do you think gets a boost with Simmons out of the picture today?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we really don't have much of a sample of what this is going to do, not only because of Simmons usually playing all the time and playing huge minutes, but the guys that they now have behind them in Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III are kind of new there, playing one game since the All-Star break, so that game right before the All-Star break. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of project for. The way that I'm doing it right now is like if you even try and just take Simmons off, you're not really going to get any true numbers from what you're going to see. But hopefully we get some sort of starting lineup news. I really don't know if we will end up getting that. Hopefully we do. Game starts at 8. But at this point, I'm projecting a minutes bump for Alec Burks. If you put him anywhere probably like around the low to mid 20s, he's going to start popping for you depending on how much you give him. If I put him at 22 minutes, I get a good amount of him. If I start putting him at 24, I get too much of him. So anywhere between 20 and 22 minutes, if I project him for, that's where I'm going to feel okay going to. He played 14 the game before the All-Star break. Now you're taking on average 36 minutes out with Simmons. I think you see Shaq Milton go back into the lineup a little bit as well. Not anything to get me to go there. Same thing for Furkan Korkmaz. So the biggest bumps for me end up being with the way I'm projecting it, Alec Burks and then Josh Richardson, who I already had a lot of interest in, have even more interest in now. Probably the biggest interest on that team for me is going to be Richardson.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, he's a pretty good value on DraftKings today at 4,200. I think also pretty decent discount on FanDuel as well. I would agree with you on him. He's a guy that dual position eligibility does look pretty good at that price point. Certainly a pivot to free up some money from some of the other value guys that we'll talk about as we go. Are you getting more Joel Embiid, though, as well? And I guess how much Richardson do you expect to have? I guess just give me the picture here on the other core Sixers guys, Tobias Harris as well. Like, which do you think your stock would be up for? Which do you think would be down for amongst the other core guys who could see a boost without Simmons, but maybe don't see as much of a big of a boost as people may think?
Yes, I was already getting a lot of Embiid, and it ended up boosting him for me by like 2.5 fantasy points, 3 fantasy points. So it was a pretty big bump. Embiid for me, I think he's coming in for us the second highest owned here, but I'm getting him to around that amount. I have about a quarter of my lineups with Joel Embiid right now. It made me feel a little bit more confident in Tobias Harris already. I'm expecting him. We'll see what they do with the starting lineup, but to start at the 4 yet again, just better rebounding opportunities. Simmons out, a guard who rebounds higher than your average guard. I think that helps Tobias as well. So Tobias is somebody that I'm getting a little bit below where the field is coming in. He's coming in around 15%, a little bit less than that, but I think he's a solid play. I like Richardson the most, like I said, Embiid right after that. Horford becomes a better player because I can just give him more minute stability with Simmons out. If you bump him 2 minutes, he looks a lot better. $5,000 price tag, he's going to project that well, but not usually somebody I end up getting to all that much. It seems like right now you're not getting the field going to him, which he usually becomes a popular player. So I might end up making just like a manual adjustment on that.
Yeah, okay, that seems fair to me, and I think we're on the same page. To me, Embiid looked like one of my core plays already earlier in the day. With Ben Simmons looking like a game-time decision. Just a strong matchup for him against Brooklyn. Last year, Embiid did put up close to 80 fantasy points in a couple of games against Brooklyn in the same spot, kind of a similar Brooklyn team, especially on the inside. So Embiid, to me, definitely going to be a stronger play overall. Has become about a 1.5 fantasy point per minute guy without Simmons on the floor. Just more usage to go around. So yeah, I agree. I think these guys are looking pretty strong here. I guess to close the loop fully on Alec Burks, because I am on the same page with you. I do think he gets the run here. It does seem like they've wanted to give him the point guard minutes in the one game that he played. And he's a dude too, just been around the league long enough where I don't think you're worried about him killing you. And when he's on the floor, he's generally pretty productive. But let's say Burks gets pretty chalky, and I think we should have a run of ownership coming up here soon. If Burks is one of the chalkiest plays on the slate, how are you feeling about his prospects there? Is he a guy that you're willing to go above on? Is he like a slam dunk play for you? Or is he someone where you're just probably going to come close to the field if he gets to, let's say, 30 or 40% projected ownership?
Yeah, if he gets up that high, like towards 30 or 40%, probably not somebody I'll end up getting too much. Like the way I project it right now, he ends up projecting out as like my third overall play value on the slate. I have Richardson at number 1. And yeah, 3,600 is a great price tag, but there's a lot of different places that you can go. We'll talk about Harrison and his ownership, but you have Jordan Poole on the slate. You have a lot of other guys on Chicago. I think that if he starts to approach those high 30s around the 40% number, I'm not going to get there. Right now, the way that I'm coming in on it is, without knowing what his updated ownership is he's in around 18% of my lineups.
Yeah, we got him at 12% in the most recent run of ownership we had from Osmo. So we'll update you guys if that changes. Obviously, that was with the first breaking of news. Things could change throughout the hour. He may certainly take a jump upwards, but right now, 12% on DraftKings, 3,600. Burke's certainly going to be a player to watch over the next hour as we get a better read on things. And of course, if you want that data for yourself, use the promo code Live Before Lock for half off of any weekly package that we have at osmo.com/join. Get all the data there, including the boom bust tool, the ownership projections, and of course, the player projections right from Osmo himself at osmo.com/join with the promo code Live Before Lock. Let's go to Shaq Harrison, because I do think that's the other part of the equation here, value-wise, that we need to consider. Shaq, a productive guy overall whenever he gets the run. Pretty much every stop he's been at in the NBA. This year as well, he was starting earlier in the year in those games that he did start. When he saw mid-20s minutes, he was pretty productive for the most part. Did spike a 45 fantasy point upside in one of those games. It is a down-paced game against Charlotte. It is still spot 2 where we don't know for sure that Shaq is getting a start, which has been an important thing for some of these kind of specious chalk plays recently. But Sal, Shaq at this price point, minimum price on DraftKings, close to it on FanDuel, probably less of a priority on FanDuel because of the opportunity cost you have there. But on DraftKings, I find it hard to get away from him, and I find it hard to believe he fails as long as we know he's going to be getting those starters minutes, or at least something close to it. How are you feeling about Shaq here? Is he worth the chalk, or is he a guy that you're willing to move away from?
Yeah, so right now, the way that it's coming in, he's probably a guy I end up getting less in the field, but not in any aggressive stance. I'm getting like 35% of him. So about 15% below the field at this point. Yeah, you get him being a pretty quality fill-in player. He's around an 18% usage guy, 14% assists. Assist percentage towards usage rate is pretty good too, 0.82, just so it's his efficiency and how much he's being productive when on the court. So you get him as a pretty fine replacement level player at 3,000. It's just hard to argue against it in a vacuum. But if more than half the field's going to roster him, and there is a good amount of value on the slate, a lot of the guys who are priced up towards the top are not that expensive in the 12K range like you usually see, strong mid-range. So when you still have Zach LaVine on this team, going to be taking up a lot of opportunity. When you have Tomas Satoransky, who's a higher usage player, Kobe White, a much higher usage player than Shaq Harrison, and probably going to be on the court with at 1 to 2 of those guys, if not all 3 for the most part of this game, I'm just not going to get there as much, not loving it. Even Thad Young is a similar usage player to him. So I don't think he's going to soak up all that much in this spot. The guy that he's really going to be filling in for, if he gets the minutes that people expect, the 28 to 30 or so, I have him for a little bit less right now. But even Chandler Hutchison, who he's filling in for, is a pretty similar usage player. So I get the love at the minimum $3,000 price point. It's really hard for it to bite you in the butt. I have him at 19 projected fantasy points. If he gets that, it's not really ruining your lineups. I don't know if it wins you a tournament, but you at least have the upside to do a little bit better. So I'm a little bit less in it, but he's still in around a third of my lineups.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where, I mean, Josh has talked about it a lot on these shows with the minimum price guys, and, not to misquote him or quote him out of context, but, it's hard to imagine Shaq Harrison, to me, as long as we know he's going to get those minutes, especially, and again, he's going to be really secure if he is picking up that start with Chandler Hutchinson out. Minimum price, I find it hard to believe he doesn't keep you from cashing. If he does spike that upside, certainly a chance for him to be in a top tournament lineup. But still a guy really where if you have him in lineups, I think he's very safe for cash. In particular, he's going to be owned. He's cheap. Really hard to see him failing in a way that's going to kill you in cash games. And tournaments, if you can get away from him, there's lots of ways to do that. Some of the guys we've talked about, some of the guys we will talk about. I might be a little more of a believer, but I do think, as Sal mentioned, the usage isn't there for him. He's got to get there with some steals, some rebounds, some assists. That's stuff that Shaq can do. It's just a matter of, does he do it in this pace down spot? Charlotte and Chicago both play so slowly. It's kind of not the ideal Shaq Harrison spot overall. How about the rest of these Bulls, Sal, or anybody else you're getting more of? Because I got a lot more Kobe White. I did force feed in some Zach LaVine. He did spike one gigantic upside day against Charlotte in November. Did have a down game after that against them, but slow team, doesn't play with great defense, is historically kind of a decent Zach LaVine spot for him to get going. So I do like LaVine. I do like White. Young, Satoransky, you mentioned, I'm getting some of those guys, but LaVine and White are the ones that I really tried to get out of my way to get a little bit more of. How are you feeling about the Bulls and anybody besides Shaq Harrison getting a boost for you?
Yeah, it's going to be probably Kobe White for me the most after that. Just a really productive player, at least in terms of how much he has the ball in his hands, and just a usage rate, 23% for a type of player like that off the bench, a secondary player on the team. That's pretty elite usage as a secondary option. And then what you also get out of him is just likely elevated minutes here with still no Chris Dunn. You saw him play big minutes into the mid-30s the game before the All-Star break. I'm not projecting that, but if you put him around 30 minutes, productive enough player that I'll get a good amount of him. I saw somebody ask in the YouTube chat about just SuperDraft specific type plays. This is one of the guys on SuperDraft that I've been looking at, again, for that pretty big prize pool they have today, I think $45K guaranteed. And right now, I mean, by the way that it's looking, I mean, we have another hour, but there's probably going to be overlay. So really good contest. He's a 1.85x multiplier guy over there as a guard. He's somebody that I'm looking a lot into.
Yeah, and we will talk more about the super draft plays in that last half hour of the show. We're basically to spell out your a lineup for you guys as we walk through everything. So again, go sign up right now while you have some time. There's slate locked at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So go to superdraft.io. Use that promo code AWESEMO10 when you are signing up, when you're creating your account. If you do that, you get $10 free, even if you don't deposit anything. But if you do deposit under $100, you get yourself $20. If you deposit over $100, you get $30. So a bit of a tiered reward system for you if you use that promo code AWESEMO10 right now at superdraft.io or by downloading SuperDraft in the App Store. Got a question here from Eric in the premium Slack asking about Luke Cornett. I guess that there are some ways you could see him maybe get a few more minutes here if they decided to go a little bit bigger going against Charlotte. I don't know why you would necessarily, but a guy who could theoretically get a bit of an uptick. Is Cornett somebody you're getting any of, Sal? Because for me, he kind of seems like a non-factor, though. Mentally, like Archie Diacono are two guys I could see them getting more minutes, but I just don't still view them as a priority.
Yeah, so I actually have, and I'm trying to filter this now. So I have 25 players in a player pool right now tonight, I have 50, but I have 25 guys as sort of like in a top tier and then 25 in my bottom tier of plays for GPP. And Cornett actually made the top tier towards the bottom of it. I have him for 25 minutes of play. Originally put him at 28. Then I saw the news that Gafford was going to be a full go. But the upside for Cornett is that you can at least see him play some 4 minutes. They've done that this year. He's done that in the past with the Knicks. So I think there's availability for him to get minutes, but that's more of a GPP play. The downside is upside also he's cheap, but the downside is that they have Felicio. You can easily see Shaq Harrison play those minutes, big minutes at the 3. Thad Young slides to the 4. They just don't really run much Cornett. They play him behind Gafford, some sort of a split. So I think the upside for him minutes-wise is not great, but he can hit a ceiling on like a 24-minute game at that price point. So I do have him in a player pool right now.
Yeah, it is a matchup theoretically where, both teams are really two of the worst in the league against centers. So you could see some upside here for the bigs. I just don't know that I trust Cornett to see an appreciable bump and run there. And, I think it's something to watch too, where it depends who the starters are. We'll keep an eye out for the lineups when they come through. A decent possibility, I think we get that before lock, but we'll see if we do. And obviously we'll let you guys know if we see anything. So Sal, we talked about the value here. I guess we also kind of breezed past Jordan Poole. Let's finish up with him. And then I think we should talk about some of the pay up options, but Jordan Poole, he's technically the starting point guard for the Warriors. Did have the second most shots on the team in that last game. Doesn't really get a boost in the assist upside. You really didn't see him with the ball in his hands too much other than when he was putting up shots. But he put up 12 shot attempts in that game. The price works. Not a good per minute guy, but he's playing Houston, who does play fast and small. He should get some shots here, you would think, against Houston, who's got to prioritize some other guys to defend. Is Jordan Poole a priority for you? He's going to be chalky, and he's not been the most productive, but over 30 minutes for him and at his price point does seem pretty good against Houston.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is just one, the chalk coming in on it at 25%. Right now, like in the exact same price range, same ownership, I just prefer Josh Richardson, who we talked about a little bit earlier. And then you have him at a similar price point to some other guys in this slate as well. So Jordan Poole at $4,000 is, not a guy. I'm slightly below that number. I'm in the mid-teens on his ownership right now. And it's just really taking a stance on the ownership as much as, like, if he was 10% owned, I would have probably a little bit more than that, maybe closer to that 20%, but just not a usage player, 20%. Now that number should come up when he's in the starting lineup. And a lot of that is with D'Angelo Russell, who's more of a usage hog away from the team. So there's upside there. He's one of the better players, especially at the guard position in the entire league at not turning the ball over. He's actually in the top 10 percentile in the entire league at doing that. But not a good assist guy. Doesn't really get much usage compared to his assists. So he's a player who really needs to create his own shot to score a lot of the time. And when you don't have a highly skilled player, it's a little bit scary doing that. We talk DFS, you're talking price to overall minutes upside. So I have him at 30 minutes, and that starts to make him look good. If I kind of rank it just point per dollar wise, Jordan Poole would come in for me as my 7th play on the day today. When you factor in the ownership, I'll have a little bit less.
It's also worth noting, I mean, his minutes should be even more secure. The deeper dive guys mentioned it, but Jeremy Pargo apparently not under contract for these guys. So it does seem like the run that he got last time doesn't seem like that's going to happen again today, unless something gets worked out last minute. So you don't know for sure, but it does seem like Poole's minutes can be a little more secure. I think the expectation is that Pargo won't be available today. So Kai Bowman also should theoretically be more of a logical direct pivot. Pargo, a little more of a usage guy than Bowman. So it's harder for a guy like Bowman to steal the minutes. And I think that makes kind of these two guys, as long as Pargo isn't in, which we expect to be the case, does make Poole and Bowman theoretically get some more stable run there. So with all this value, Sal, where are you going to pay up? Because I got a lot more James Harden and Russell Westbrook than I thought I would. Also got some Giannis, even though that spot too, really both those games, Houston's game and Milwaukee's game, two heavily favored teams on the road against teams who just seem greatly outmatched. Detroit in particular, I find it hard to believe this game doesn't get completely out of hand pretty fast, but who knows? You can't predict blowouts. Where are you paying up with all this money you have, Sal? Are you going to the Harden tier? Are you Harden or Westbrook? Are you going to Giannis? Who are you getting the most of at the pay up options?
Yeah, so right now I slightly prefer Harden over Westbrook at this point when they're both not picking up all that much ownership. They're kind of cutting into each other. So I think it's fine. I have right now Harden projected for 6.2 more fantasy points than Westbrook. You factor in the $1,000 difference, but I think there's also a higher ceiling on that number. So I do prefer Harden to Westbrook. I prefer him to Giannis. There is just a huge spread in that Milwaukee-Detroit game, which is a little bit concerning. There's really the bodies that are left for Detroit at this point, maybe a banged up somewhat Reggie Jackson or Derrick Rose with Reggie Jackson out of there. So a little bit of a concerning spot for Giannis. Obviously, he could hit a ceiling in 25, 26 minutes, but I'll take the 37 secure minutes with Harden there. So Harden all the way up top at the highest price point in the slate, I still do like Westbrook. If I had to rank that 10K plus range, we could throw the 9K plus range in there. It'd be Harden, Embiid, and then Westbrook in that order. But I have a lot of interest also in the 7K range where you see Bam, Butler, and Fox as well.
We need to also just get an ownership update as well. So again, if you want to get that, use the promo code Live Before Lock for half off your first week at awesemo.com/join. Let's see if anything changed here materially. So Harden's ownership actually came down a little in this most recent run, under 20% for him. I just think the floor with him is so secure. I have more Harden than Westbrook. I agree. The ceiling also a little bit more intriguing for Harden. I like both guys though quite a bit, and it really doesn't seem like I would have thought with the value out there that Harden and Westbrook become, I wouldn't say lock plays, but guys just pop up a lot for people in optimizers because they definitely came up a lot for me. Harden and Westbrook, 20%-ish for both. I'm probably going to be double Harden, and at least with Westbrook. Relative to the field, Sal, if we have Harden at 20% and Westbrook at a little bit higher, let's say 25%, where do you want to be relative to the field for those guys?
Yeah, so I'm going to come in above the field on both of them at this point. I'm going to come in a good amount above Harden, probably 15% above Harden at this point. And then coming in on Westbrook, I would say somewhere around like 30%, so maybe like 7%. So I'll be above the field on both of them. Interesting to see that Westbrook is coming in a little bit higher owned. Maybe I'm assuming it's just the price point at that point, but you have a lot of value on the slate. So I'm finding it very easy to get all the way up to Harden at this point. And even if there was no ownership, if they were both unowned, 0% ownership in a perfect world, I think that I still prefer Harden to Westbrook. So even with the lower ownership, I'll take him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Westbrook, he feels more like a cash game play to me, just looking at the two guys and their ownership and what Westbrook has done. Like, I find it hard to believe Westbrook doesn't get you 50 today, but I think if you wanted to target somebody who can get you in the 70 neighborhood, I do feel like Harden has a little bit more upside to accomplish that. And really, I find it also hard to believe that either guy is going to kill you in this spot going against a Golden State team. Really can't defend anything. But I would say that for tournaments, I would favor Harden. For cash, I think I want to favor Westbrook a little bit more today. Let's keep going to the rest of the slate, Sal, because we've talked about all the value guys, and I guess there really aren't any value guys in this one game, but it is a spot that jumped out to me as being interesting. Memphis and Sacramento. Sacramento playing pretty fast in the new year. They're shooting about 13.9 seconds into the clock, which is up for them. Their pace has started to slowly trickle up, but it hasn't, because they haven't taken a sea change in terms of how fast they're operating. It hasn't jumped up exponentially with the longer sample size of them playing slower earlier in the year. I do think this game, though, is going to have a pretty decent pace. It does also have a pretty good combined total, 230 combined points for these teams, which is just behind Houston and Golden State. And obviously, Houston carrying a lot of the water for that and combined total in that game as well. But I like Sacramento a lot here. Darren Fox, the only guy who's going to be owned. Memphis as well. John Morant came up for me a decent amount. Dylan Brooks as well. Brooks just due for some positive regression on his shot. He's shooting enough here, shooting 41% from the floor, but just breaking everything recently after a pretty hot run a couple weeks ago. What are you getting in this game, Sal? Because Fox to me just looks like he's appropriately owned. The other guys, I did get some Bielitsa, I did get some Bogdanovich. And the Memphis side as well, just completely unrepresented ownership-wise. Anything jumping out for you?
Yeah, Fox. So on the Sacramento side, Fox is the guy that I'm getting to the most at this point. He is one of my favorite plays on the slate, and even with the ownership following it, I'm going to be coming in above the 26% number on him. He grades out as my 7th overall play on the slate. That's including value. Anything above $6,000 in price, he would be my top play. So I get a lot of Fox usually. I have him projected for 34 minutes. That's pretty much every time out where I project him for. They're in a lot of blowouts just based on the way that this team plays. They've ranked in the bottom 10 over the last 15 games in just offense. So they find themselves in a lot of blowouts, which leads Fox to play 30, 32 minutes instead of what he's normally on pace for in the first half, which is 34 to 36. So at that point, I get a lot of him. 33% usage rate if you wipe out some garbage time. 35% assist percentage. He's the guy that I like the most from this team. The one issue that I would say is, and if you look over the last 10 games, and Cleaning the Glass does a good job at just kind of breaking this down by games, but the last 10 games, you have Memphis is playing as the number 1 defense in the league in points per possession. So that's a little bit concerning compared to where they were at the beginning of the season. So very strong defense coming in there. I don't think that factors too much specifically for Fox as a point guard, but he's the guy I like the most. Outside of that, I think secondary options and Buddy Hield and Bielitsa are fine. I would prefer Hield as my number 2 from Sacramento.
Yeah, Hield, the minutes have been there for him. He's been over 31 minutes his last few games, even though he's coming off the bench. And, there were some reports of him being unhappy and him wanting a trade, even though the trade deadline is past, classic Buddy Hield fashion. Coming off of the All-Star game show, and he had probably some good juju for him as well. Definitely not a bad spot for Buddy Hield, even though he is coming off the bench. The minutes are secure, and he's a guy who can spike an upside, though. I do feel like that's the case of a lot of Sacramento guys, and they don't often come through or don't always come through. How about the Memphis side for you, Sal? Any Morant, any Jaren Jackson? Jonas Valanciunas as well could be a guy who benefits from Sacramento really not having any big of consequence across from them. Are you getting any of these guys?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess I'll point out that right now, just to finish up on Buddy Hield, he's shooting over 60% of his shots from three-point land. So that just gives you more upside in GPPs. He's a guy who comes in with 27 or 25% usage, which is strong for a number 2 in his team as well. But yeah, on the opposite side of this game, it's a complete opposite for this team. They're number 1, like I said, in their last 10 games for everybody in the entire league in defense. They're dead last in offense, which is very interesting that your defense isn't turning into some sort of offense and not rank you dead last. So that's over the last 10 games for everybody in the league. But again, for a guy like Morant, he's just sort of priced slightly below where he should be, but in that 7K range that we just talked about, yeah, he's at the bottom of it, but I prefer Fox, who's not that much more expensive, like we talked about. Some other guys kind of hinted at Jimmy Butler, I would prefer at this point. But Morant's a guy, and same thing for Joe Val and some of these other pieces of Memphis that just like where they're priced, I am not going to get there optimizing based on median projections. But I find myself just boosting Morant's projection by like a half a point. Same thing for Joe Val, just to actually get a little bit more of them, because I think they're in just really good GPP spots. You look at that game environment, one of the better ones on the entire slate, one of the closer spreads, if not the closest on the slate. So I think the upside in GPPs is there for those guys. They're just kind of going, I think, a little bit unnoticed because they're priced in spots that make it hard to get to them.
Yeah, it looks like their ownership has come up enough where it feels reasonable that Ja Morant on DraftKings a little bit under 10%. Jonas Valanciunas still pretty low owned, under 7%. But I think if you get to these guys at 10, which is about where I was in the most recent crunch that I had before, or the most recent build of lineups I had, I feel like that feels about right. But just tournament plays, guys with some upside. This Memphis-Sacramento game, despite Memphis' defense being a little better, despite Sacramento on paper looking a little bit slower than they did, especially compared to last year, still two teams that should be competitive, as Sal mentioned. I do think there's a little bit of upside to getting some pieces here on this particular slate where it just seems like these guys aren't going to be too highly owned at all. Let's answer a question about this game that we had in the premium Slack, which I just lost, but somebody asking about Harry Giles, and Harry Giles' minutes have started to come up a little bit. I previously talked on one of our Live Before Lock shows about Giles, just from a guy I know who was working as a Knicks team doctor while he was doing his residency. And he was there when Harry Giles got screened by the Knicks, and his knees are just in terrible shape, basically the same condition as Brandon Roy, where his knees are rubbing up against each other. So that's why they really don't play him big minutes. But he has seen a little bit over 20 minutes recently. He is also very cheap. He does occasionally come up in some optimizers out there. Is Harry Giles a guy you would consider at all, Sal, as a cheap guy pivot, especially given the fact that maybe they need him to be out there a little bit more if Jonas starts really destroying him on the glass?
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for him at 3,400 as a center because you've seen sort of the spikes, the narrative of maybe an all-star break, a week off. You can get a little bit more minutes out of him, a little more juice for him. But I only have him projected at 18 minutes. You could tell me you have him projected for 22. He'll look a little bit better. But at 3,400, even at 18 minutes, I have him for right around 18 fantasy points. Yeah, it looks fine. On this slate, it's not a priority. But whoever asked the question, like if you want to roll him out in a GPP, there's definitely a ceiling there in terms of fantasy points, but your upside in minutes might only be 24 minutes, but he can surely get it done there. The price point helps. So yeah, I don't have anything negative to say if you want to roll Harry Giles in a GPP.
Yeah, I mean, not a guy I would want a ton of exposure to just because it's hard to him. Like it's, I think, a near impossibility that he gets to, let's say, 29 minutes or 30 minutes. But if he gets those low 20s and has a really good run there, it's possible for him to spike an upside. So I don't hate it. I think I got him in one lineup out of 50 something I did before the show. That to me feels like about where I would want to be for Giles, maybe 2 or so, but just not a guy you want to load up on. But if you got him in a tournament, I certainly wouldn't hate it. But like I wouldn't make him a foundational building block for today because that's just not the kind of guy Harry Giles is. Even when it seems like he's going to be assured all the minutes in the world, that's often not the case. Let's go to Miami because I actually agree with the thing that you mentioned earlier. Jimmy Butler to me looks like a really strong, sturdy play today. A guy who I find it hard to believe is going to kill me in any spot, and his price makes him really like a strong build, a strong part of any lineup build, especially if there's some way that Atlanta keeps this one competitive at home. And they do a good job generally hanging in games at home, definitely more than they do on the road. So Butler, to me, at his price point on DraftKings, I got a lot of him. He's at 21% now in our most recent run of ownership. I'm at double that, and I feel pretty comfortable with it. Butler at 20%, Sal, how do you feel about him? Is he worth more or less to you? Do you have any concerns? Because he does sometimes play a little passive in these games where anybody can score at any moment, and that's definitely the case against Atlanta.
Yeah, I really like the spot for him here. It's hard not to like it. I have him at 33 minutes. He can play more than that. He's been a little bit lower as of late, but All-Star break over any nagging injuries that he was having, maybe a little bit behind him. But even at 33 minutes, 7,900, it's just a really strong spot for him. Atlanta over the last 15 games, they are the second worst defense in points per possession in the entire league. On the entire season, they're the third worst. So just getting worse, if anything, lately. So it's a really good spot for a guy like Butler. You're going to get him just leading his team more times than not in shots. No Tyler Hero. If anything, that'll lead to maybe an extra bump or so for him just usage-wise for a guy who will take up some shots. But yeah, Butler, 28% usage. You get him elite usage, assist percentage at almost 29% here. So he's a guy for me that I'll be above the 20% number. I've talked about Darren Fox. I talked about Embiid. Those are 3 guys that I like a lot at this point. We did talk about between Westbrook and Harden. I would prefer Harden, have interest in both of them. But right now on this slate, the guys that are, let's say, 7K and above, Fox, Butler, and Embiid stand out a lot for me. Butler's probably a little bit behind Fox just due to price at this point, but I like them both a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think those guys are definitely a big part of the core builds I've had today as well. And I guess another guy I would throw in who I got a bit less of, but I wanted to make sure to not completely avoid, Bam Adebayo. His ceiling is not quite as big when you have Butler as well as Nunn and Dragic in the mix because he loses a little bit of assist upside. But Bam just does a bit of everything. And going against Atlanta, just really an ideal Bam spot where there is some pace, some room for him to get peripherals in a bunch of different categories. Bam also looks a little bit under-owned to me. We got him projected for 15% right now, a little bit above that. I think Bam's a pretty strong play. I didn't get double the field like I did on Butler, but I think Bam deserves a little bit more. How are you feeling about Bam here? Is he worth it, or any of these other guys jumping out to you as being potentially worthwhile?
Yeah, I think he's worth that ownership. I'm coming in right around it. I would like to get more, but just the way that this slate's playing out, those other guys in the 7K range that we just mentioned, I'm just not getting more of it. But yeah, he's a guy who's very versatile at this point. I mean, you have him at 22% assist percentage for a center. That's great. He could take his game out to the 3-point line. That's always good as well. It's not like he's at threat of being shut down by anybody on the opposing team. Now, nobody really on Atlanta. I'm scared of a Dwayne Dedmon for mid to high upper 20s in minutes, but it's just nice to see that you have that escapability and the upside from the 3-point line. So yeah, Bam at 7,800 in this matchup looks just as good as his teammate Butler at this point. I have Butler. I have Bam for 1 more minute, but I have Butler at this point for 2.5 more fantasy points. So at similar price points, I'll just get to more Butler, and it's just pushing Bam, I'm assuming optimizing wise and just center eligible only. It's pushing him a little bit lower in just my overall exposure, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think the Heat overall, I mean, honestly, you could talk me into stabs at a bunch of guys, I think, on this roster just because of the matchup with Atlanta, especially in lineups where you don't have Butler. Like, I think going to Dragic or Nunn is logical. I also, and this is the one time it did pay off particularly well, was Duncan Robinson is a guy who always jumps out to me just because he shoots so many threes, shoots over 8 threes a game, and he shoots them well. I mean, a 44% clip from him from deep so far this year. Going against Atlanta, he's going to get some easy looks, and the price point, maybe not the highest upside guy, but if he does get going and Butler fails, I think one way that can come about is if guys like Duncan Robinson, as well as obviously Dragic and Nunn, who are more direct pivots to Butler, if those guys have success, that's one way that Butler fails. And I know I saw some people talking in the YouTube chat and the premium Slack about Butler as chalk. If you wanted to get away from him, I would think that's the pivot, is going to other guys who can do the scoring things, maybe get looks without Butler involved. And I think Robinson, Dragic and Nunn in particular, that would be the guys who'd be potentially pivots there. Sal, how about the Atlanta side? Because Trey Young, just kind of a monster overall. Hasn't played well against Miami so far this year. Hasn't topped 40 fantasy points yet, but the usage is there. The assists are there. A little bit of an all-star break boost for him as well, which probably benefits a smaller guy like him, who also really has to get lift on his jumpers a lot because he's shooting so many of them over and over again. Is Trey coming up for you at all? John Collins, Herder, DeAndre Hunter even, or Dwayne Dedmon, who's also cheap and probably needs to play more minutes here, was limited by foul trouble in his last game, but he's been really good since becoming a hawk once again.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, the news that we were waiting for was just Hunter, if it would change anything up for some of the rotational guys, but he's going to end up playing here. So it's making it difficult at their price points to want to get to these guys. I think John Collins is one of the more just underrated players in the entire league. I think I saw a stat the other day that he's like one of 4 guys in the league averaging 20 and 10, and he has the best effective field goal rate on that in the entire league. So just underrated, but I think he's priced for it. I don't think DraftKings is underrating him. So I'm just not going to get to it at that point. If Hunter was out, maybe it would open up some more value, but all the way up at the top, I think Trey makes for maybe a more interesting GPP play, but we already talked about the ownership on sort of Westbrook and Harden at this point. Now Trey's going unowned. He's like less than 10% projected ownership compared to those guys, but those guys are also low owned to the point where I want, 50 to 100% more than what the field has on them. So yeah, at 8%, I think Trey is a guy that's fine in GPPs. I only have like 4% of him, so I'm half the field, but it's just a factor of me preferring Embiid and both the Rockets studs up top.
Also, we just got the Pistons lineup, and it looks like Derrick Rose will start along with Bruce Brown, Tony Snell, Steku Demboya, and Thon McCurr. So Christian Wood not starting. Wood was a guy who I think might have come down in the most recent run of ownership, but we did have projected for a decent bit of ownership before. Still had him in 18% in his most recent run. He doesn't seem like he'd be a great match for Milwaukee just in terms of being able to move around and be switchable and all those things. But Wood has previously done well off the bench. My question for you, Sal, is Wood out of play for you right now? Because it does seem like it's a little bit harder to trust, even though I just don't see how he still gets the minutes, even if he is coming off the bench, because somebody has to play here. But tell me about Wood and what you think with him not starting, and also Derrick Rose getting to start. Does that change the equation for you with him?
Yeah, I was expecting Rose to get the start. I think it just comes down to so I projected Rose at 28 minutes, and if I project Rose, and I'll just keep him there at this point. All-Star break, he could easily play 32. They need him now more than ever with no Reggie Jackson there, and really usage-wise, he should push like a 1.3 fantasy point per minute type of guy with just nobody left there. Drummond shipped out as well. So Rose was already a pretty strong play for me. Projects out for a little over 31 fantasy points at 28 minutes. So if you think there's upside to his minutes, I think it's great. I don't really think there's that much more downside. Like, yeah, there's a way where they only play him 24 minutes and work him back in, but I'm not going to project for that. I think 26 is sort of like a floor, barring any injury reoccurrence or a blowout. So I think Rose is a pretty strong play. The Woods playing off the bench is definitely concerning because of where his ownership is. He was a really strong play for me. I was projecting him for 34 minutes, and now I'm just playing around with the minutes if I do some different things. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because so if you project him for 34 minutes, he grades out as just one of the better plays for me. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, power forward option on the slate, right around 39 fantasy points. That number at 34, it's just really hard to give him that. Even if I pull him down to 30 minutes, he starts to become a player that I don't want to get to that much, especially when you factor in the field. At $7,000, 30 minutes of play, I have him for right around a 5X guy, 35 fantasy points and change. So at this point, I'm going to have to change my Wood exposures a good amount relative to the field. I'll still get some because I think there's still an upside for him into the 32-minute range, depending on how they play this. But you still have Markieff Morris out there. He's going to be playing off the bench as well. So yeah, at this point, I'd be more bearish than bullish on Christian Wood.
Yeah, it's just not a great spot for him. I guess it's worth pointing out it is a revenge game for him, though many teams are a revenge game for Christian Wood, given how much he was kicking around the league for a while there. It just doesn't seem like a spot where you could see him and really trust the minutes load he's going to get, just because he's long and he's, I think, fairly agile for a big man, but Milwaukee is not the kind of spot where you could expect Wood to really pick up a ton of run. Wouldn't shock me if he has a big day off the bench, but definitely not a day worth 20% ownership. If he comes down substantially in the runs that we get of ownership as we get closer to lock here, then that's fine. But I would agree. I think 20% would just be a lot of Wood in general. And it's hard not to giggle like a teenager whenever there's a lot of Wood remark. I
think to close it on that, I'll be curious to see how it rebounds, but I'm almost tempted to project him still for 30 or 32 minutes, just based on the way that they, looking at some of the last rotations for Sekou Demboye, like he'll start games, but then he'll only play low 20s. It's not like he can threat to play 34 minutes, which you got out of Wood there. Thon McCurry, he can play upper 20s in minutes, but they really haven't extended these guys into the same exact way that they do extend Christian Wood. And unless Markieff Morris after the All-Star break is going to come out and play 32 minutes, I think that's what you're ending up thinking here is that if you project Christian Wood for, say, 32 minutes, and if I end up doing this, I'll get a good amount of him compared to like almost none of him if I give him 28 or 30, you're pretty much trying to hedge against Markieff Morris coming out and playing like a 32-minute game like he was before his injuries. The All-Star break, a week off, we don't really have a sample of what happens here. So I think I'm okay taking that risk. If I put him at the 32 minutes, he's a guy that I would expect to get around the field. He would grade out for be like a 5.2x guy for me.
Yeah, I think he's definitely capable of earning minutes against the backup group, and I think that's one thing that does give you some pause if you are completely removing Wood from your lineups. But it's just one of those things where if the ownership, we won't know until lock really how it's going to look fully. But if the ownership comes in low, it's probably a decent day to have some Wood. If he comes in high, then it's not a great time to go to Christian Wood today. But we'll see how it goes as we get closer to lock. I guess, we got some questions here in the premium Slack, but one guy I realized that we kind of breezed past, and he's, to me, a very important part of the lineups I've been building today. Robert Covington, also very chalky ownership on him, and I just feel like it's worth making sure that we kind of clear the deck talking about him. Shooting at least 7 3-point attempts since he joined the Rockets, and it was really reassuring to me how he spiked a pretty big upside day last time out for Houston, even though he only shot 3 for 11 from the floor. The run's there for him. He's productive in a bunch of categories, and if he does have his shot fall, which should be the hardest thing in the world going against Golden State and how poor they are defensively, giving up over 38% from deep for them, I think Covington's one of the stronger plays on the slate, though he does come with risk because, he bombs. And if he misses all his threes, he can definitely leave you in a PJ Tucker-ish situation. But how are you feeling about Robert Covington? Is he a core play for you or no?
Yeah, I like Robert Covington a lot at this point. So he just fits. I mean, he was the perfect acquisition, in my opinion, for what Houston's trying to do. They've made that pretty clear now. But if you look at his numbers on the year, they're not going to just stand out all that much. I think he's still priced too cheap. He was playing next to Towns, where it just crushed his rebounding rate overall. It crushed his putback opportunities as well. So when you look at his usage rate, you shouldn't expect much there, and you still shouldn't when he's playing on this Rockets team with Westbrook and Harden. But the rebounding rate is something that should come up. But he's a guy who's not really ever going to be known for that. So although it comes up, he is in like the top 1 percentile in the league in terms of how many of his shots come from 3-point range. And I don't expect that to change in Houston. So it gives him a lot more upside when he's going to be going out there. And with no Eric Gordon, it gives you a little bit more security that he should play these mid-30s a minute. So that's where I have him projected for today, 35 minutes. He just looks like a really strong play. Right now, he's attempting 74% of his shots from three-point land. So compared to just 21% at the rim, not your traditional 4 or 5 like they're trying to make him, but they're playing a specific style of ball, and I think he fits it really well. Just the overall minutes based on what you're going to get shot attempts out of him and just back your way into a certain amount of peripherals in that time, playing at a faster pace. Yeah, I think Robert Covington is a pretty good play today. You just start to come into the issue of trying to decide if you're building one lineup out there. Like, you have a ton of strong plays. We've talked about Embiid, Butler, Fox, Shaq Harrison we spent time on, and now Covington. Like, all these guys are picking up a ton of ownership. So you really have to pinpoint the ones that you want. I think he's a strong play as long as the rest of your lineup has at least 1 or 2 options where you're getting a little bit different.
Yep, I think that's fair. And Covington, I think just a steady player and a guy, as Sal mentioned, just really does fit what they're trying to do there. Kind of a linchpin of what they're trying to do overall. And I think, just being able to say that the guy's going to get 7 3-point attempts going against the Warriors, that's what Covington's getting. That's what they want from him. And I think, if he hits those looks today, you could definitely spike an upside day. Eric Johnson asking, any Jay Crowder love for you today? He did have those big first couple games when he joined Miami. Maybe not as much of a play you want to go back to with his price where it is, but Sal, did you get any Jay Crowder today?
Crowder, I did. Yeah, I did. So I have Crowder projected for 30 minutes and a little over right now, like 25.5 fantasy points. So not the greatest play, but at 5K, like I would prefer him to Horford in that area slightly. Dylan Brooks slightly. So he's kind of in that area for me. Not a priority, like a back end secondary option.
Okay. Yeah. I think I would agree with that take overall. I don't think I might have got him in one lineup, but I might be actually taking that out. So not a play that I'm backing with my pocketbook today, so to speak, but Jay Crowder, a steady guy getting the minutes going against Atlanta. I think as I said before, really can't argue anybody going against Atlanta today. Daddy of a Princess in Premium Slack asking feelings on Melton and Clark. I got no Clark today. Got a little bit of Melton as a pivot to some of the other value guys we've talked about. Though Melton, just the role, not the most secure, even though he's been a pretty good per minute guy on the year. But are you getting any of D'Anthony Melton or Brandon Clark today?
Yeah, I like Melton just because he's coming in unowned. And yeah, like you said, like the role on him, if I project him for 22 minutes, he looks fine, but he could play 20. I think 20 is like his floor, upside of like 26, 28 if everything breaks his way. So yeah, I think in a GPP, not really in cash with those types of minutes, but in a GPP over a fantasy point per minute producer, a high usage guy and just no ownership, that's exactly what you want in him. Clark's usually a guy I never get to. I think he's like one of the guys in the league when I'm projecting minutes each morning that I just know I'm going to give 23 minutes. And every single time, if you look at any type of game log or rotation, he plays just 22 to 24 minutes. So I don't really have any interest in him at 5,100 at this point. Melton, yeah, I would have a good amount of interest. 7%, that seems like a pretty strong number.
Yeah, Clark, I agree with. He's just in that mix with both Jaren Jackson and Jonas Valanciunas. If one of them were out, I think that certainly makes them would make Clark pop a little bit more for me. But if you wanted to get him in the mix for tournaments, you have a real strong Brandon Clark lead. I can get that. I can see why you might want to go there. But for me, he projects just under 5x value. Just not a dude that would normally pop up for me without some things breaking weirdly, like Jaren Jackson getting foul trouble, which actually isn't that weird at all, but not something I would expect. Let's see. Cashing out DFS asking Fox and D Green, I presume Draymond, or damn it, he did the Fox on both. So Draymond Green or Bielitsa, which would you pick? You don't have to put the same guy on both sides of the equation. That just confuses me.
Draymond Green and Bielitsa. I'll take Bielitsa there.
Yeah, I would agree too. I definitely have more Bielitsa than Draymond today as well. So yeah, that one I'm confident with. Let's see here. Tony Snell revenge game. It is a revenge game for many players in this Milwaukee-Detroit game. Tony Snell, I think a guy who can pick up some usage with the way that they're rolling out that lineup tonight. But still not a dude I would really want to trust, though. I guess he is a price point pivot to Jordan Poole, so that gives me a little bit of appeal there. But I don't think I have Tony Snell in any lineups. Sal, any Tony Snell for you?
No Tony Snell. So yeah, I mean the usage might come up, but on the season he's an 11% usage guy. He hovers around 10% for his career. So it's just really hard, even like once per year, to try and pinpoint. Even if you play Tony Snell like every single time all season long, I don't even know if he hits value for you more than like 5 times. So I don't know how much I want to get there. I probably right now I have none. I wouldn't get there. You're going to get the big minutes, but I'm looking at the other players just around him in price point. Yeah, even at the increased ownership. If your lineup's completely chalky, yeah, pivoting to Tony Snell off of Poole, I think's fine. But like, there's other options. Pulling it up now, you have Richardson, again, somebody who's highly owned, but I think I'm still fine getting there. PJ Tucker, D'Anthony Melton. So Melton would be the guy in that price range I would take before getting to Snell if you can fit it positions wise.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, if you're doing something, which I do sometimes like to do, depending on how confident I am in the guy, where if you're cutting your Jordan Poole ownership or ownership that you might have going to Jordan Poole, and you cut that and gave some of that to Snell, some of that to Melton, some of that to, whatever, Arcidiacono, just to say as an example off the top of my head. I think that's one way I would do it, where I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of Snell as a portion of that. But on paper, just not a dude you can ever trust. Just a poor per minute guy who doesn't get usage. But he and Thon McCurr did play for Milwaukee, so maybe there's some fire coming out of them today, but not anything you could bank on. No good question in the Slack right now. So if you guys have any, drop them in there. You get your either ors in. But again, just don't put the same player on both sides of the either or, because that's just confusing for everybody involved. But Sal, anybody that we haven't hit on at all that you have above the field on that you feel like is worth bringing to the people right now?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to see what the ownership is on him right now. So with the news that we got, Eric Gordon right now. So Daniel House's ownership has come up to around the mid-teens. So he's coming in as like a top 20 owned player. But I do like Daniel House at this point. At that ownership, it's kind of a wash. But I think Daniel House is a fine play. You have a guy somebody who I'm maybe a little bit more concerned on than what I've been just seeing overall today. So PJ Washington is somebody that I think he's okay to get to, but you do end up having, I believe, this team fully healthy now. So the minutes that you've been seeing out of Washington into the mid 30s, low to mid 30s right now, it doesn't seem, at least to me, as secure. So Cody Martin's going to be back today. This is a player that was playing, they were pushing into the upper 20s in minutes. It was impacting Washington to an extent. So I still think you have the upside for him minutes wise, but it's just not an automatic guarantee, barring foul trouble, that he's going to play 35 minutes. So I have Washington projected today for 30 minutes. And at that point, I'm not going to get as much as where the field's coming in at 10%. So those are just like lesser owned guys to take stances on, because I really do think that on this slate, the guys at the top end, we talked about Shaq Harrison, said that personally I was a little bit below him. Jordan Poole, personally, a little bit below him, but everybody else in the top end in ownership projections right now, 15% above, they look like fine plays. It's just a matter of getting different in one or two spots.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess one guy that we haven't hit on, really this team, I think we just kind of breezed past, because on paper, really not anybody that's going to jump out to you. But Brooklyn going in this matchup against Philadelphia, the deeper dive guys mentioned it before us, but the defense going to get a little bit easier for these guys. And usually one guy is not going to materially affect a team's defensive outlook that much. Ben Simmons really is an elite defender who's going to be better on ball than anybody they're going to be able to trot out there today. I do think Dinwiddie and LeVert gain a bit of interest for me. LeVert in particular is really not going to pop up for many people, but over the last couple weeks since Kyrie went back out again, LeVert started to assert himself more, been a higher usage guy than Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie's still getting the assist upside. Does seem like it's hard for both guys to get there, but I did get more LeVert than Dinwiddie today. Sal, Dinwiddie or LeVert, either of these guys interesting to you at all, given that LeVert's under 10% and Dinwiddie's just a little bit above it?
Yeah, so right now the one that these guys are just hard to really pinpoint mainly. So, I mean, we've had LeVert playing hot as of late the last week or so before the All-Star break. Dinwiddie's been playing great if you look at his season numbers with Kyrie off, but once you throw LeVert back on there, it's a little bit harder to judge. Like on the season, there's just totally different on-off tools you can use for the combination of Brooklyn, but Dinwiddie's a 33% usage guy. He's a 34% assist guy. That's great. You throw LeVert on, the usage comes down a little bit, the assists go down a little bit, but I still prefer Dinwiddie to LeVert slightly here. The fact that Simmons is out, I think, is going to help Dinwiddie a little bit more. You do have LeVert just shooting-wise playing a little. He drives less than what you get out of Dinwiddie, so it's a small difference there. It's just still a really difficult team to try and target. Right now, I'm not getting a lot of either of them. Prefer Dinwiddie, but even with Simmons out, like this team, if you're talking defensively, with Richardson now back and seemingly going to play 32 plus minutes, and the guys that they have off the bench that they can throw out there for 20 plus minutes. It could be Thibault tonight. It could be Korkmaz. It doesn't matter. They just have just so much depth. And then if you factor in just driving percentage with Embiid and Horford and Harris at the net, it's a really terrible defensive matchup really all around. So just based on usage and upside, I'll have a little bit of Dinwiddie. And right now I think I got like 2 lineups with LeVert.
Also, the Heat starters are in Nunn, Butler, Robinson, Crowder, and Adebayo. Crowder hasn't started for them yet, has he? Or am I mistaking that?
I'm honestly not sure.
Let me double check here. But
like,
I think
I remember his first 2 games after he had the one big game. I was like off of him, so I'm really not sure what the week.
I feel like he came off the bench. Let me see if oh, you know what, Fantasy Cruncher is down, I believe. So this is not going to be a fast solution. Well, anyway, Crowder is starting, so his minutes definitely get a little more secure, but in a higher usage group overall. If anybody in the Slack or the YouTube chat wants to confirm, just tag me and let me know, because I'm pretty sure he's been coming off the bench, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there we go. So somebody in the chat saying, wow, Crowder first start. I don't know that that's a great thing for Crowder, just being involved in that group that's going to have a lot more usage to go around. And being in the second unit, I mean, he's getting Iguodala and Dragic with him for the most part, who are guys who are going to really set him up better. I would give Crowder, more secure minutes, but I think a slight downgrade overall for his opportunity. But we talked about him, Sal, so I guess we might as well close the loop on Jay Crowder. How do you think he's affected by moving to the starting lineup if this is, in fact, his first start?
Yeah, so I'm trying to see what to do with it. I think it just becomes like a wash for me overall if you're like talking projection wise. If I end up giving him like 2 more minutes, it makes him just, I already like him more than all those other options in that range that we talked about. So it makes him just a little bit more appealing. But I think I have him at 30 minutes. I think I'm just gonna split the difference and put him at 31. So just minutes wise, he'll look like a little bit better of a play, but nothing stands out more of a priority. Like you said, just playing alongside guys with higher usage. And especially playing not at the 4 now, yes, more rebounding chances, but playing next to Bam, that does hurt it a little bit. I think it overall is a slight bump for him opportunity wise and ceiling wise, just because of minutes, but it's not going to change too much.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, I wasn't getting him either way, but I do think if I were getting a lot of him, I would just be a little bit hesitant to assume that he's going to have the same opportunity he's had, just because, it's a little bit tougher group there. You got Bam and Jimmy, who are 2 guys that have to be fed, whereas the groups that he was in before, really, he's a guy who was getting fed by the other guys, and I think that is a pretty material difference for him. Got a question here. Shout out to Justin White for the super chat. We appreciate those, even though have not been doing them as much today. Justin White asking thoughts on Brook Lopez. Sal, any interest in all for you and Brook, given that he's priced pretty appropriately, and we talked about earlier this game would blow out. I have no Brook, and I don't see any reason to go there.
Yeah, no, I don't have any Lopez in this one. The price point that he's at, it's pretty reasonable. There's just no real interest just because of the other guys around him. So Jaren Jackson Jr., I'd rather have in a GPP. Elites I'd rather have there if you're talking about just power forward, center, similar position. But then once you start to go, also Thad Young, power forward. But once you start to go just across different positions, you have Dragic, you have Rozier, you have Rose, all in the same area. So some of those guys not nearly anywhere near chalk. So I just prefer all of them before getting to Brook Lopez.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think, Brook is a guy at this price point, I'm willing to take the stabs on him when Giannis isn't in the mix. And even though he's a better player per minute with Giannis on the floor, it's just, there's so many ways this game can get out of there and not involve Brook Lopez spiking an upside or even getting close to his normal production. Detroit's just so bad. And I would be worried about a fringe player going to this kind of spot. Let's see. Are people panicking? Apparently Fantasy Cruncher having some issues for people out there. So, nothing we can do about that. As I mentioned, I just trying to load it. It does like it's loading a little bit for me, but I would say don't keep refreshing right now if you can, because that's going to only make it worse for him, but bit of a downer for everybody trying to optimize last minute here. Let's see. Nothing good here. Anybody you're afraid of your ownership for, Sal? Because I'm just thinking through it, and the more that we talked about Covington, the more I'm like, God, that's a big bet on Covington, knowing how he could just disappear, or there's other guys who can score. But anybody for you, Sal, that you're worried about the ownership you have relative to the field?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's probably just Shaq Harrison. Like, I'm still below the field. I think latest update still 50%. I am still holding around 35% of him, but like it's still a stance below the field. But at this point, I'm just wondering if it's worth just going a lot below. I guess the big thing is if he's $3,000 and he goes out and plays the 28 to 30 minutes and 10 X's for me, it's going to crush a lot of my lineups anyway. So I might take a more aggressive stance and just go half the field on him at this point. But yeah, it's a guy who it seems like it's really hard for it to hurt you. So I guess you can go either way on it. That's the one that I'm having trouble with. 2 minutes left, though. I think I'll just end up staying at 35%.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been aggressive on Shaq all day. I kind of figured, I mean, he's come down and up a little bit. I've been around 50% for the majority of the day, and I'm willing to ride with it just because. So lately for the chalk guys who've been a little more speculative, a little bit more worrisome, Fast Eddie, shout out Fast Eddie, pointed out in the YouTube chat earlier, they said specious, which is one of my preferred words that I think Eddie and I share. Shaq's just a good per minute guy. And every time he gets the minutes, he's been good. Like going back to every stop he's been on. I remember some nice runs of him on Phoenix as well, where he was getting the starts for them. A bit of a different situation usage-wise with Levine, but he just does enough of everything where if he's getting the start, I'll feel good about it. If he's getting the Chris Boucher special and he's not starting, and then we end up seeing him get 10 minutes somehow despite the lack of bodies, maybe guys like Adam Makoka get more minutes or the aforementioned Luke Cornett get more minutes. I'm not going to feel great about it, but for now, I'm trusting Shaq and hoping that Jim Boylan does a smart thing. And apparently he gave some quotes that indicated it won't be Kobe White starting, or at least heavily intimated that Kobe White won't be starting. So better odds for Shaq. So let's go. Go team Shaq, go. We got seconds left to lock, guys. Get your lineups in if you haven't yet. Some bad luck, bad run if the optimizer of your choice is not coming through for you today. But got a couple seconds left here. So good time to emphasize the importance of making dummy lineups, right, Sal? It's definitely a good thing to do for before the last hour of these slates, right?
Yeah, you didn't have any trouble?
I do mine usually before we do the show, and I'll tinker as we go. But yeah, I do like a crunch beforehand, which is bad if there's like late breaking news that changes the equation completely. But yeah, for me, like I can't host a show and talk and have brain function and then crunches last minute. So that usually one saving grace for me when doing these shows.
Yeah, that's fair. No, yeah, I completely agree with you. That's fair.
Yeah. As you might be seeing right now, if Josh were on this show right now, he would be an unhappy panda for sure. But he also does the same thing too, where this is an important part of the process. And, I'm sure Josh could talk about it more during his office hours, but which you get as part of being a premium member of Osmo. Having dummy lineups in, having lineups you feel good about just in case these things go south. Obviously you want to have the most recent updates. Our projections are being updated by the minute. The ownership projections are being updated by the minute. But you got to have something in there just in case things go south. And that is part of the process you should bake into everything because, having that stuff is as good as gold and just getting lineups in, especially it looks like the DK tournament might have overlaid a little bit. Some ways that just having a lineup in may pay dividends. Let's do a quick round of Cousin Sal and Cousin Spags likes so we can then talk Super Draft because we are doing the Super Draft half hour here. And you can get your lineups on Super Draft, no problem right now. So while we're talking, do a quick round of Daddy Likes. Go to superdraft.io. When you sign up, use the promo code OSMO10. So you're maybe tilting already from whatever lineups you didn't get in for the main tournaments on the other sites. You get them in right now at superdraft.io. Use the promo code OSMO10. Use that promo code OSMO10. OSMO10 when you sign up. You'll get $20 free without depositing anything. If you do deposit, you get yourself $20 if you deposit less than $100, and you get yourself $30 if you deposit over $100, and that's instant release money to you in Super Cash. Just play it and it's yours. Let's go right now to superdraft.io and use that promo code OSMO10, AWESEMO10. Let's get yourself in on the mix here and get yourself all those deposit bonuses that they are offering for you at Super Draft. All right, let's see where this ownership is. Sal, if you had to guess, who's going to be the top owned player from these early gains on the DraftKings big tournament, $8 entry fee there. And then I think $150K up top with some sort of bonus for value, or if you get the top value under 5K in your lineup, everybody splits 25K. Seems stupid.
I saw that. Maybe it'll just lead to a lot more people playing those lower owned guys. But this is the one game, right?
Yep. Is it just one game? Yeah, I guess it's just the Pistons and Bucks game.
I'm going to assume the highest owned. Oh, Pistons, but I'll assume it's Giannis.
It is in fact Giannis at 25. So yeah, that's that feels about right for Giannis. I got to think Harden's going to come in a little bit higher owned than we had him projected for. But 25% Giannis. Sal, do you have any lean for that? I would say that seems fair. I don't really have a strong dislike or like.
Yeah, it seems fair. I ended up having less than it, but just a product of getting two other guys up top.
Yeah, I mean, I have more Harden as we talked about. I thought that was a better approach for me tonight. But 25% Giannis, can't really argue, going to give you a decent floor and certainly an upside too, even if Detroit doesn't keep this competitive. Derrick Rose at 19%. I feel a little better about that with him starting. I feel like that ownership's still a bit high for him, just coming off of the injuries he had, only played one game coming back from the injuries. He has to play minutes, one would think. But Sal, how do you feel about 19% for Derrick Rose?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of indifferent to it. The fact that he was starting, I was assuming he would start. I gave him 28 minutes. I think there's only upside from there, really. I don't know if, I guess 26 would be a bottom number, but just all the usage that he's going to have to control everything out there. The fact that Wood's not starting is even just better for point per minute production. So yeah, Derrick Rose, even if he was to play like 26 to 28 minutes and you had 20% of him, I don't think it's terrible. And there's definitely an upside there. So yeah, I feel good about that number. If you're over it, that seems okay.
Yeah, he's been dominating the ball whenever Reggie Jackson and Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond have been off the floor. I think averaging about 1.4 fantasy points per minute as well. So, if he's going to get 30 minutes today, which not crazy given how he was running before he got hurt most recently, you definitely can have some big upside here. And really somebody has to do something for Detroit against Milwaukee tonight. And hopefully for these people, it'll be Derrick Rose. Number 3 here, Christian Wood. He still was at 16%. I got under that. I got I think 2 lineups with Christian Wood out of all the ones I had. Sal, how do you feel about Christian Wood at 16%? For me, that feels like the range we were talking about, where that feels a little too high if he's not starting.
Yeah, so I came in slightly under it, but nothing crazy. So I ended up giving him 32 minutes. He projected for 36.1 fantasy points. So it was enough to get him in some lineups. I got him at 13% here. If I would have given him 30, I would have had like no Christian Wood though. So I'd rather have some than none at that point. So yeah, I'm a little bit below it, but I do still think just the way they run their rotations that he should see a good amount of run.
All right, let's run through the rest of these so we can talk super draft. Bruce Brown, 4.4%. That seems a little bit low, though. He was a better value play on FanDuel today. But Sal, Bruce Brown at 4.4, does that do anything for you?
Yeah, I would want more than that. Nothing crazy, but like if you have double or even triple that, I think that's good. I want more than the 4%.
Yeah, apparently he's not going to be, or Dwayne Casey said he's not going to be the lead ball handler anymore. He's just going to be an off-ball guard. And apparently the guy right after him, Steve Mikhailiuk, may get some more point guard run. He's projected for 4.3% ownership. I still don't mind taking stabs at either guy. Dwayne Casey's word, perhaps not worth the most in the world out there in terms of what he does versus what he says. So I think Brown can be very viable, but I think Brown and Mikhailiuk being closely owned seems pretty appropriate for what we know about the news that he's put out there. Thon McCurr, 4%. Brooke Lopez, 3.8%. Markieff Morris, 2.9%. I think this is kind of an intriguing one, Sal, because Markieff Morris is going to just chuck in that second unit. And he did chuck that last time out. Hasn't played big minutes since coming back into the lineup, but he's the kind of dude that Milwaukee will let shoot threes, and he's also unashamed enough to shoot threes. Did you get any Markieff for yourself today?
Yeah, I did. I got 3%. So pretty much where the field is at on him. I'm pulling up what I ended up putting for him. So Markieff Morris, I ended up giving 22 minutes. But like I was saying earlier, there is, especially after the week off for the All-Star break, there's a chance that he can see more run there. Now they're kind of out of it, and they don't really have an incentive to want to play Markieff Morris that much. But yeah, 22 minutes, I think he looks fine, and there's more there for it. So yeah, I think that number is pretty good.
Chris Middleton, 2.3%. Sekou Doumbouya, 1.5%. Another dude who's dying to shoot, who could maybe do something, but it's mostly looked terrible since being in the league so far this year. Eric Bledsoe, 1.4%. George Hill, another minimum price pivot guy, 1.4%. Tony Snell, 1.2%. Sal, Tony Snell at 1.2 seems about right to me. Do you agree?
Yeah, I ended up getting none, so I guess I'm under it. But yeah, I mean, I can't say too much about it.
I got one lineup with Snell in there just because whenever we talk about a guy on a show and I'm like, that is logical to at least have one share of him. That was what I did. And Tony Snell was the award winner for that category today. Langston Galloway, 0.9%. Not crazy against the Bucks. Dante DiVincenzo, 0.8%. Pat Connaughton, 0.4%. Ersan Ilyasova, 0.3%. Sterling Brown, also 0.3%. John Henson, 0.2%. Wesley Matthews, 0.2%. Marvin Williams, 0.1%. Reggie Jackson, 0.1% of people played Reggie Jackson today. And Sal, how do you feel about the 0.1% Reggie Jackson, given that he's on a team who's not on tonight's slate?
Yeah, it feels really bad. It feels like they ended up playing themselves on that one.
They did, in fact, play themselves. Thank you for doing that. Sal, Josh doesn't ever want to say that people have played themselves. I think he doesn't want to do any gimmick infringement on Eddie's bit, but God damn it, I want to say that somebody played themselves. And people who played Reggie Jackson for sure played themselves big time today. All right, let's talk super draft here. Let me load up the freshest ones from Osmo himself. Got 5 games on today's Super Draft slate. And actually, let's see how this tournament is filling, because has not been filling up to the entire capacity most recently. We got 2,242 people in right now out of 4,369. So get in there right now on superdraft.io. Again, the jump shot tournament today, $10,000 up top to first place. That is a big tournament prize, and also a much smaller pool of competitors than you're going to find for a lot of the other tournaments out there with the same prize point. So go right now to superdraft.io. And if you haven't signed up yet, do it immediately. Use the promo code AWESEMO10, AWESEMO10. If you do that, you get yourself $10 in super cash right away without even depositing anything. Use that promo code AWESEMO10 with a deposit of under $100, get yourself $20 free. If you deposit over $100, you get $30 free. So honestly, just deposit $101 on Super Draft. You'll probably come out ahead pretty well there. It's a great way to build your bankroll. And this site, as we've mentioned, it's been overlaying recently. A lot of opportunity there. Sal, how are you feeling with Super Draft so far? Are you playing on there? I guess, what's your experience level with it? Is there any observations you've had from what you've either done as a player or just from talking about it on some of our content?
Yeah, so it's funny. Like early on, I saw them on Twitter before like everybody started promoting them, or you guys started promoting them. So I played over there, and I was playing through my college like email, and then my college email like just stopped working because it stops working all of a sudden. So I ended up like going back in when Osmo started promoting through one of the promo codes on there. And yeah, I think the format's really cool. So
wait, are you multi-accounting, Sal? Or are you teaming up with your fiance?
No, I can't even use the other email anymore. Like
you defrauding Super Draft, Sal? What a way to confess it.
Yeah, no, I can't.
On a sponsored show for him. That'd be the ballsiest move. It's like,
no, yeah, the one time that I tried to like log in via the email, it just wouldn't let me log in. And then I tried to log into my college email, and it was like, you're not allowed to do this anymore. So I was like, all right. But no, I like the format. It's just refreshing at this point. I mean, there's like, especially when you have like a site like just Draft Leaving, which is a different format, but like, you know, the snake drafts, it's refreshing when you don't have to try and fit a puzzle together. Now I think it's like creative and fun, the DraftKings salary cap format, but it's just a different space where not as many people, nowhere near as many, have it figured out. And not as many people want to spend that much time figuring it out when there's not huge prize pools. But like tonight, you have a prize pool where 50% of the field or close to it right now is going to get paid out due to the overlay. That should shrink with 20 minutes to go, closer to the lock of this. But there's going to be a lot of overlay in it with a big prize pool. So this is going to be like one of your best chances ever to win $10,000. So I think it's a pretty strong contest.
Yeah, and they're doing a good job getting more large prize pools out there, particularly the ones going with big numbers here. 5 figures going to first place. That's an eye-catching number. And not that Brick is a spokesperson, but Brick 75, the guy who's on the contrary with me and Osmo, one of our regulars here at Osmo, who's also a top 10 player in the world, according to all the rankings out there of DFS players. Just a guy I really hold in some degree of esteem as being sharp and knowing how to take advantage of DFS sites and the overlay of the offer and just the bonuses and those kind of things, because that's really the way, even if you are a top tier grinder, a guy who's made a lot of money and won a lot of big tournaments like Brick, like Osmo, like Tom, all of our guys behind the scenes here, it still does benefit you to go on a site like Super Draft right now, because as Sal mentioned, it's easier to take down a top prize pool. This contest overlay is right now, they need 2,000 entries here in this last 20 minutes. Obviously, we want you guys to get in there, but pretty decent probability they don't fill there. So you're playing at least decreased rake, possibly getting some overlay as well. So there have been times here where we've done this show where people just haven't gotten lineups in. And the guys who did get lineups in ended up having money won by just participating. Didn't even matter how they performed. So that's why we encourage you to take advantage. And again, if you do take advantage, use that promo code OSMO10 for all the deposit bonuses. $10 with no deposit, $20 if you deposit under $100, and $30 if you deposit over $100. All right, Sal. So let's talk through some of these top plays here, according to Osmo. His top projected play overall on Super Draft, maybe a bit of a surprise to people, a guy that I don't even think we talked about at all. Andrew Wiggins, 0.15x multiplier on Super Draft here. This projection and his role at Golden State here, as well as a pace-up spot against Houston, and a Houston defense is really not too intimidating right now, or at least not for a guy like Wiggins and his athleticism. He's a top projected play on Super Draft. How do you feel about Wiggins here being a top player? Do you trust him in his new spot here at Golden State?
Yeah, it's just more so the multiplier on it. Like even on the main slate, I guess we didn't talk about him that much, but he wasn't a priority for me. But if I just give him the multiplier that he has here, so I had him projected for just under really 40 fantasy points, and just where he was priced on DraftKings, that 7K range, it was tough to get to him with Butler and Fox there. But you're giving him a multiplier that should be probably similar to Butler's, like a 1.35x, but he's getting 1.5x on it. So yeah, he's one of the guys that I would want to target more. He was the first guy that when we were looking at power forwards and when I kind of downloaded this earlier today, that stood out to me. Another guy that we kind of spent a good amount of time on talking about on the show, but 1.6x Robert Covington, also somebody that I have interest in.
Yeah, so Wiggins, I do think with the multiplier, and Osmo's projection on him just looked pretty good. He's been really efficient since playing for Golden State, which, can be a blessing and a curse, because if he does have one of those days where he's less efficient, it's going to be a bit of an issue. But playing against Houston, a game where they need to get some points on the board, this is really Wiggins' time to operate and show what he can do a little bit more. I do think he's a guy that I would not mind on Super Draft. And actually, Sal, what we did the last time I did the show with Josh, we built a lineup as we go. So I think let's put Wiggins in there right now. He's a forward on there, so he's going to take up one of your 3 forward spots, but I think he's good. And I guess let's see where Covington landed for Osmo, because he's got Covington as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got Covington as the 8th best play overall, but I do think that he's going to be a stronger play too. So I would say let's start with Wiggins and Covington as our forwards. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right, let's do it. So, and again, we'll give you guys the full lineup here, but right now it looks like Covington and Wiggins taking up 2 of our forward spots, both guys in Osmo's top 8, so they should be pretty well projected on Super Draft. Covington, as Sal mentioned, 1.6x multiplier, Wiggins 1.5x, so probably a little bit more of a multiplier than these guys should have given their skills and roles. Jimmy Butler here, number 2 for Osmo, 1.35x multiplier, as Sal mentioned. He's one of my core plays on DraftKings. I don't see why he wouldn't be on Super Draft. But Sal, how are you feeling about Butler here? Do you think he's worth probably pretty chalky ownership on Super Draft as well? But Osmo's number 2 overall top projected play for Super Draft.
Yeah, I think Butler looks good as well. Butler's another guy that the 1.35x multiplier, I guess it's just not as appealing when you compare it to Wiggins, but overall in the slate, I think they did a really good job with everybody else, and we just didn't have a ton of injury news, so it didn't open up a lot of other players. Like the guys from Philly, it doesn't really change too much of them and how they were looking before that Ben Simmons news, and nothing else really broke. So yeah, I think that Wiggins, Butler, Covington, I think that's a pretty good start. I think the biggest piece of it when I was building on Super Draft was trying to figure out what to do at center. There seems to be just like 2 viable options, but you can only roster 1, so it becomes difficult there.
Yeah, I want to talk about center because actually I thought that Bam would be a center on there, but he is just a power forward. And Shelton Myers in the premium Slack asking, would you play Butler and Bam together with multiplier? Let me look at Osmo's projection. So he's got Bam projected to be the number 3 overall play. This is a pivot point to me where I think you can make a choice, and maybe we can make a choice for our lineup where Covington does project to be a little bit worse. Butler and Bam are both forwards, so we can only have 3 out of Wiggins, Covington, Butler, and Bam. So, Sal, if you had to drop one of those 4 guys out of Wiggins, Covington, Butler, and Bam out of our forward trio, which do you feel like is the least appealing? And I think, do you have any issue playing Butler and Bam together? Because I wouldn't normally, but I guess there is a bit of opportunity cost from playing 2 Heat players at forward on Super Draft.
Yeah, since Bam is a power forward, and you also get the 1.4x multiplier, so a little bit better than what you get out of Butler. I actually have Bam right now. I have Bam ahead of Butler barely. They're right next to each other for me. So yeah, I would prefer Bam, Butler, and Wiggins as a forward too. So yeah, those 3. So I guess I would ditch Covington at that point. He's still a strong place. Like I guess if you're trying to get different, it's a way to go. But I really don't know how many people on Super Draft are like using projections here. So yeah, Bam, Butler, and Wiggins are probably the people that I would go to there, especially if you're going to have a lot of overlay. It's just, I guess, a little bit more conservative if it's even doing that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's swap Covington out. I would say though that I think swapping Butler out and going with the Wiggins, Covington, and Bam trio would be pretty different. I think Butler's going to be pretty well owned on Super Draft, but I agree. I think that's fair to say that just better to take the guys that you're a little more confident in. And I have more than enough Covington exposure on DraftKings where I'm not missing out on that surge at all. So I feel like that's fine. So now in our lineup here, we have Wiggins, Adebayo, and Butler together. So we are, in fact, going to play Butler and Adebayo together. How about the next play up here? Russell Westbrook is going to be the top projected guard play for Osmo, a 1.1x multiplier for him. But we talked about it earlier. I just find it hard to believe Westbrook doesn't put up 50 fantasy points in this spot. I'm very comfortable with Westbrook as one of my guards. How do you feel about him as a guard, Sal?
Yeah, it's hard not to like Westbrook at this point, and especially just getting 3 guards. So yeah, the 1.1x multiplier, I'll I'll take Westbrook there. His teammate Harden. So on DraftKings, I prefer Harden more, but you only get the 1x multiplier here on Super Draft. So yeah, I'll take Westbrook. I prefer him to Trey just straight up, and you don't get the multiplier as well on Trey Young. So just compared to the other guards, which you're getting at the top end, nowhere near as much upside. Simmons being out, Kyrie out, so a lot less to choose from. Yeah, Westbrook seems to be the best guard play probably on this slate.
Yeah, I would agree there. Levine, a little bit higher multiplier for him, but I think he's got potential going against Charlotte, but it is a pace down. Westbrook, it's just really hard to see them stopping what he does. So I think he's a play just to put in there and not worry about it. It does look like James Harden is right behind Russell Westbrook in terms of actually Osmo has them projected in terms of their super draft when accounting for the multipliers. Westbrook 0.02 better than Harden. 61.9 projected points for Westbrook today on super draft, 61.88 for Harden. I don't mind playing them together generally if you can afford it. And on Super Draft, that is one of the bonuses of playing on Super Draft is you can put Westbrook and Harden together and it's not going to completely impinge what you're trying to do in a meaningful way. So I'd be willing to go to Harden here, Sal, if you are. How do you feel about adding Harden to the mix here alongside Westbrook?
Yeah, especially since we're not going to play Covington in this lineup. Yeah, I'm okay going to Harden. I guess I feel not uneasy with Bam, Butler, and Westbrook, Harden, seeing both of those working out, but you just factor in the multipliers of these other players, and yeah, just pure projection wise, Westbrook and Harden just look like the clear cut guard options. I think the third option will be a little bit more interesting, and I guess maybe if everybody's going to be doing the same thing, maybe the spot where you can get different.
Yeah, so let's put him in for now. And also still only 2,700 entries right now in the jump shot. So there is still 1,600 entries left to fill on it. So there's probably going to, again, we talked about it earlier, probably a decent chance of overlay, at the very least decreased rake. So get in there right now, superdraft.io, and use that promo code OSMO10. It's going to take you like literally seconds to sign up. It's a very simple process they do for you guys. So go there right now, superdraft.io, or download Superdraft from the App Store. Use that promo code OSMO10, and you can literally steal our lineups because we don't care. That's how much we want to help you guys out on Superdraft because everybody's just be taking advantage of it right now. After these guys, Marquise Chris comes up for Osmo rather. I think he's a center. Let me just double check that. If he's a center,
he's what makes it difficult because it's like he has a really good multiplier, and it's pretty much him and Embiid that are like I think the only viable options if you're banking one lineup.
I mean, Jonas Valanciunas, I wouldn't mind at the 1.35x multiplier, but Embiid's at 1.15. I don't want to go against Osmo's projections, but I do think Embiid's in a really nice spot here with no Simmons. And I guess it is still a pretty narrow difference. Marquise Chris projects for 59.3 points, according to Super Draft, with the multiplier, according to Osmo on Super Draft. Embiid projects for 57.4, so a difference of 1.9 fantasy points, accounting for the multipliers on Super Draft. I think I would go Embiid over Marquise Chris, but Embiid's going to be higher owned, though. I don't know, Sal, What's the logic here? Do you think we should go with the lesser owned guy who's got the better projection? Because I think that's probably the way to play it, though Embiid does fit the safer thing that we talked about.
So did we fill out our third guard spot yet?
No, we have the third guard spot still open.
Yeah, so it's either – so I think less people are going to play Chris just because you got to scroll for him. The multiplier is what makes him really nice. So I think like if you're just trying to cash here and it's probably going to be pretty easy to cash if this thing doesn't come close to filling, then I would just go with Embiid and you have still upside in that. But I think the spot that I feel more comfortable getting away from ownership and being a little bit more unique is with Chris. So I'm okay getting to Chris here over Embiid if like you're talking about win the whole 10,000 more upside. I think that's the play with the lineup we have right now.
Also, the Bulls starting lineup is officially out. Satoransky, Levine, Archie Diacono, Young, and Cornett starting. So no Shaq starting. Oh, God. Why does this always... it's whenever we do a show that this happens that I'm overexposed to a guy. But I guess while this is here, Sal, we'll finish our center argument in a second. But Shaq, big downgrade for you now, I would presume. Or do you think he's okay because he's going to get the second unit run and really not have anybody to do anything with him, I guess, besides Kobe White?
Yeah, so he's going to be a downgrade, but it's not going to be that crazy because, look, he was $3,000. I ended up only projecting him for 24. I saw like 26 and 28 some spots. I think I'll bump him to like 22. So instead of being projected for close to 20, he'll grade out for maybe like 17 to 18 fantasy points. So, at $3K flat, it's still okay. But when you're talking about 50% of the field owning him, it doesn't feel great.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. And something that I'll evaluate. I think that's a 8 p.m. start, right? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something I will evaluate when we get off the air. But yeah, that's I would definitely downgrade some Shaq exposure if you can right now. But he's still very capable of getting there, but it does seem like he may not see more than the usual 10 to 15 minutes he does, and Arcidiacono just going to be out there as a body doing nothing because that's what Jim Boylan does best. All right, center. Marquise, Chris, or Embiid? I guess let's answer this question first because I feel like that's an easier one. Or Jonas. So Sal, Embiid, Jonas, or Chris, which of the three would you want to go to? And then we could talk about maybe how we'd pivot if we went with the chalkier option or the less chalky option.
Yeah, so if it wasn't a GPP, I'd say Embiid, but to try and bink the whole 10K in this lineup, I'll go with Chris.
All right, so Marquise, Chris in at center. So we now have Westbrook, Harden, Wiggins, Adebayo, Butler, and Marquise, Chris at guard. All right, let's see. Who's going to be the next projected best guard? Is Karis LeVert a guard or is he a forward? Let's see. Karis, where are you at, buddy? Karis is a guard. Karis 1.75x, and the matchup is going to be a little bit easier against Philly. I would say, though, I guess LeVert you might not need with Chris at center. LeVert still looks good to me, though. How are you leaning at guard? Because I would say we should go to LeVert and then upgrade to Embiid because I think LeVert's going to be different enough. But who would be your third guard with Westbrook and Harden?
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing here is if you want to get different at center with Embiid or you want to get different at get different at guard. I guess I feel a little bit better with staying the same or staying how we are at center to try and win the thing. And the guy that I like the most there is probably Fox with the 1.3. Is it 1.35x? I think he has.
Yeah, he's 1.3.
So I think I like the Fox and Chris pairing the most just for like GPP upside, but like for cashing with still some upside, but probably not as much. Yeah, the Embiid combination with really any of those guys works.
So yeah, all right. So here's the build that I think I would say is a little bit no, because we're pivoting here. So these are both pretty tournament viable, I would say. But Westbrook, Harden, Fox, Wiggins, Adebayo, Butler, those are your three forwards, and center Marquise, Chris. I would say swapping around Embiid in at center and LeVert in at guard would be the moves that I would want to make there. I also don't mind Zach LaVine taking stabs at him, but I feel like that would be the spots I would want to rotate. I feel like Westbrook, Harden, Wiggins, Adebayo, Butler as the core, and then just kind of rotate around the guard and center because I think that's the one way where that one, like Fox failing wouldn't be the biggest shocker in the world. Chris failing wouldn't be the biggest shocker in the world.
Yeah.
But I think, having one of those guys in there would probably be the move.
Yeah, I think that makes sense completely.
All right, so our final lineup here, Westbrook, Harden, Darren Fox, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Marquise Chris. That is one you can take here. Probably going to be, if you want to get a little bit chalkier, let's say you're playing cash on Super Draft, just go to Embiid instead of Marquise Chris. I feel like that would be probably the chalk lineup of the day. Would you agree there if you went like with Fox and Embiid, that's probably the chalkiest possible combination?
Yeah, I'm trying to look at just like what the pay up options are, but just like where like DraftKings and everybody's going with those plays based on ownership, I would think that Fox and Embiid would end up being the highest owned out of like the last couple of guys in there.
Anybody at a 2x multiplier that jumps out to you? Because we do have both of our Bulls guys here who are possibly getting screwed by Jim Boylan's eternal incompetency. Shaq Harrison, Ryan Arcidiacono, both guys at 2x. I don't know. Shake Milton also at 2x if you wanted to go there. Any of these 2x guys seem remotely appealing to you?
So the 2x guys don't, but if we were to go and beat in that type of a lineup, I think 1.8x Kobe White's really interesting as sort of like a guy that not a lot of people will probably play.
Yeah, I always like Kobe White. And again, not a great pace matchup going against Charlotte. I do think Kobe does play a little bit better when he does get some more speed and room to operate. But Kobe's got the usage in the second unit, and certainly Shaq Harrison's not going to take any away from him. So yeah, that's I agree that Kobe would be an interesting little play there. See if we got any questions. No, nothing good. Sixers lineup is out. Oh, Raul Neto is starting for the Sixers. So that is one change there. It is actually Neto, Richardson, Glenn Robinson, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Sal, do you like any Neto now? Is he a guy to even consider as a pivot potentially to where maybe our Shaq Harrison ownership would have gone?
Yeah, I mean, they're the same price point. I would rather have Raul, Neto, whatever it is. I would rather have him now than Harrison. I think let me project it now. But at that point, just minutes wise, I would feel similar to more confident in Neto's. And at the same price point, you're going to get just no ownership on it. Yeah, I would rather have Neto than Harrison as a pivot.
Yeah, Neto, man, I want to see let me just give Neto some
Like,
minutes.
I wouldn't like go out of my way to get him if you don't have Harrison, but if you have Harrison right now, I think like they outscore each other maybe on like a coin flip at this point, and the ownership's not going to be anywhere near there.
Yeah, let's see. Neto would be, oh, no, he's not popping up. Crap. All right. Well, on a per minute basis, he still doesn't look that great, but at a minimum price, just as a salary play, might be honestly be worth global swapping your Shaq to Neto if you were trying to do that real fast.
I don't even know if I had Neto projected before this. I don't think I did.
Yeah, I don't think we had him getting any minutes. I mean, he was out of the rotation, so logically there wasn't any reason to put him back in there. But maybe Jim Boylan's also coaching the Sixers today. They're doing a little fun, life swap situation for those boys.
I forgot about that show. That was a pretty good show.
It was. It would, if only more NBA coaches could do it, I think would be great fun for us in the DFS community.
Was that show real?
I think it was probably real as much as any of those reality shows are, where the premise is real.
Those moms would yell at the kids that just wasn't theirs, and that didn't seem right.
Yeah, no, it seems like it'd be terrible for the kids if it were real, like borderline traumatic potentially, depending upon who you swap in. But
yeah, not great.
I'm no reality TV producer. I don't know. I'm no psychologist nor a reality TV producer.
That's fair.
Oh man, so this tournament's going to have a lot of overlay. Again, guys, really take advantage of this when we try to push you. It looks like it's going to be about 1,000 entries short. A lot of tournaments today, it seems like people are a little bit slow to get back into the grind today. But this jump shot tournament, 30 seconds left. By the time you hear it, it'll probably be locked. But it looks like we're about 1,000 entries short on there. So a little bit of overlay, a little bit of a rake savings for you guys if you play it on Super Draft. Take advantage of it, especially tomorrow. We're doing another Super Draft show. Back half of the week does tend to have a little bit less entries on Super Draft. We've noticed beginning part of the week, people are a little more willing to go there and invest that time. But coming off the All-Star break, I think there's going to be a bit of an edge over the next few days. So get in there right now, or in the future tomorrow. Just do it. Just do it because it's going to be good for you financially, not just something that we're saying to shill our stuff. All right, we're locked now, Sal. Anything you want to hit on or anything you want to plug? I guess we have the XFL show tomorrow for us, so that'll be fun. But anything else you want to hit on?
Yeah, XFL show tomorrow. Tune into that, and that's about it. Best of luck, everybody.
Yeah, tune in tomorrow. Sal and I, 2 p.m. Eastern, will be doing the XFL show, and I'll be producing that one for the first time. So fingers crossed I don't break everything. We'll see. We appreciate you guys. Again, thank you to Super Draft. Check them out. Sign up right now so you don't have to deal with it tomorrow. Go to superdraft.io and use that promo code AWESEMO10. Again, $10 if you don't deposit anything, $20 if you deposit under 100, and over $30 if you deposit over 100. So use the promo code AWESEMO10, AWESEMO10, to use all of those deposit bonuses right at your favor. We appreciate you guys. See you guys again soon. Enjoy your nights. Good luck.